Hello everyone. One of the most played chess openings is d4 and c4. This is so-called the Queen's Gambit. And after the Queen's Gambit, there are many stuff and many defenses for black, many setups for black. In this series, Master the Queen's Gambit, we will discuss it all and you will have very good knowledge how to play this very rich, strategical, nice opening. First of all, why is the Queen's Gambit? This is very important. Why is the move c4? Haven't you asked yourself that? I will answer it. After, for example, knight f6. Now, if you don't play c4 and if you play, first of all, let's go back. Now, after d4, white is threatening e4, right? Threatening to have and to control the full center. Great. So, if you go knight f6 to stop this, which is one of the most played reply against d4, then if white did not use the c pawn and played something like knight c3, fighting for the center, then after ideas like d5 now, you will feel you don't have that much of pressure. You wish your pawn is here to challenge the d5 pawn, and if the d5 pawn moved away, then you have the chance to play e4. By the way, with proper defenses, black should be fine, but our task is to make his life kind of suffering. So in this first episode, we will start talking about d4, d5, c4, e6, what's so-called the Queen's Gambit declined, and this is one of the most solid chess opening ever. How to play against it? That's what we will talk about in this first episode of our series, Master the Queen's Gambit, Part 1, Queen's Gambit declined. So we will have a general plan. By the way, anything is mentioned here will be in a study on chess. So I will leave the link in the description so you might have a look after watching this video. So after d4, d5, c4, e6, we go knight c3. And after knight f6, the most played move, I recommend here c takes d5, which is actually one of the most played move. Why I recommend c d5 now? Because this delete many of black's options. For example, if you go knight f3 or something, then there's always ideas like dc4 openings, or for example Ragozin opening with bishop b4. Many defenses black will have after knight f3. Knight bd7, by the way, is a very interesting option. So after c d5, e d5, and now we go bishop g5. Wait a second, bro, there is knight takes d5. First of all, knight d5 is not a move that you need to know what to do against, as you have simply the center. But I recommend this idea like e4 takes, and after c5 you do have now two options. Either you go rook b1 to stop this check to simplify the position, or you allow that, it's fine. Knight f3, cd, bishop b4 check, you go bishop d2, and after taking, castling, you improve the bishop, you castle, you bring your rooks to the game, rook f e1, rook a d1, you have no problem whatsoever. The bishop can go back. At some moment you can go e5 or d5, and white is completely fine and black is under huge pressure. So after cd5, ed5, bishop g5 we go. We pin this knight, bishop e7 to get rid of that pin. And now, very interesting idea, we go e3. By the way, one of the main ideas for white here, just to remember in order to have a very good understanding of this structure, is not to allow this bishop to go out easily. What do I mean? Like, especially this diagonal, yeah? Especially this diagonal. Now in this position, after we go bishop g5, this move is a mistake. Why? Because we could take bishop takes f6 simply, and after queen takes f6, you lose the pawn, knight takes d5. So you cannot actually go for knight d5, or sorry, for bishop f5. Or g takes f6, this is a very bad pawn structure, and white is completely better. So after bishop g5, black says, okay, I go bishop e7, and now white can prevent bishop f5 with queen c2, but it's still not a threat, because after e3, if you go now bishop f5 again and again, I can take, you take, and then double attack. Queen b3, attacking here and attacking there. So after e3, your opponent castling, now you could go bishop d3 actually, and that's prevented. But maybe ideas like, for example, early on, ideas like c6, say c6 for example, it's one of the ideas. Now black has a threat of bishop f5. So remember this bishop cannot come here easily. We go queen c2. This is very important knowledge in this type of structure. And usually the fight is against this bishop. So after bishop g5, bishop e7 is the most normal played move. We go e3. We don't allow bishop f5 because of queen b3 with bishop f6. So castling, and now we control this diagonal bishop f3. By the way, always bishop g4, you do have ideas like h3 g4 later on, or f3 g4. It's usually not a good place for the bishop here. So after c6, now we go queen c2. We have a threat, which is bishop takes f6 followed by bishop takes h7. So to stop that, knight b7, probably the most played move and the most effective move, just to develop the knight and support the knight. So now in this position, I recommend knight ge2. Why do I recommend this move? Because it's the tougher move here for black to meet. Why? Mainly because white has two main plans in this position, and that's what we will talk about. We do have the plan of long castling, followed by h3, g4, f4, g5, h5, etc. Pawn storm on the queen side or on the king side. By the way, black is not going to sit watching. He will have some counter attack as well. So this is kind of a crazy game, and you increase your chance to win. But in the meantime, you increase your chance to lose. That's why we recommend another option as well, which is the short castling. My recommendation is to try both. Don't say like, no, I want to do this. No, I want to do that. No, both. Play both. Your chess understanding in this structure, in this opening, will increase. So the idea of short castling is to go for f3, e4. For example, if black do nothing or does nothing, rook b8, f3, move the rook away, e4, you go back, now e5, you go back with your knight, whatever. Like, for example, say this is possible. Well, I mean, either we exchange the bishops or not. We focus mainly on the pawn structure. We do have the idea of f4 followed by f5. And if you manage, remember this, if you manage to have this structure, white is completely winning regardless of what the engine is going to say. Because after f5, you do have f6, you do have e6. This is something no human can fight against. Great. Enough with explanation. Now let's see these ideas in action. First, we will see the idea of long castling. It's a game between Topalov and Gonzalez. c4, it's a different, you might see different move order, but we will focus about our move order d4, c4. Bishop g5, bishop b7, e3 castling, bishop d3, c6, knight ge2. Maybe I do recommend the queen c2 because, I mean, in a blitz game or in a bullet game or in a rapid game or even in a classical game, your opponent might not pay attention and say, okay, let's improve. But no, you cannot let's improve. After bishop f6, bishop f6, bishop h7, you are losing now, my friend, as black. And believe me, it happens even with very strong players. So start with queen c2 better, but anyways, Topalov played knight ge2, knight b7, and now queen c2. After queen c2, rook e8, and Topalov went on to play long castling. After long castling, as we said, the idea is to attack on the king side using the pawns. And after knight f8, we do have no time to waste. h3. We want to start our attack as soon as possible. Gonzalez tried to make this attack not that strong by simplifying some of the pieces, but after bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, bishop takes e4, d takes e4, yes, some pieces are exchanged, but now new weakness appeared and the attack is still alive. Like g4, very interesting idea, followed by knight g3 and attacking on e4, very strong attack, and maybe on f5, and then rook d g1. f5 is played, and should I take and bring your bishop to the game? No. Rook h to g, rook d to g1. I am going to bring all my pieces to the king side to attack. After that, bishop e6, black played in order to improve the bishop. G takes f5, opening the g file. Bishop takes knight g3, attacking the bishop and pressuring the e4 square more. Bishop g6 again, h4 to make use of the rook to annoy the bishop away of the e4 pawn. h6, knight ge2. Now this bishop is under fire. Knight f4 to be coming. Maneuvering. Knight f4, bishop f3. Actually, this bishop here seems good. And it's protected by a pawn, but actually it's not that much of effective in the game and cannot improve, cannot like have a main role here. So just watching, rook h3, rook g3 is coming, after queen d7, rook g3 attacking on g7 twice, rook e7 trying to protect, and now in this position, Topalov said it's fine, my knight is not playing that much. I mean, he's attacking a square that's protected with the other bishop, so how about improving that guy? How? Knight b1. Queen e8, knight d2. keeping the pressure here and adding more option to the arsenals like knight takes f3 and being a pawn up, or maybe knight f3 whenever the time comes. So queen f7 is played, attacking on a2. No, I am not going to allow any counters. Queen f6, now the pawn is about to be captured. Knight h5 first, attacking here, attacking there, attacking here, everywhere. Queen takes h4, knight takes g7, and after knight g7, actually knight f5 can be a move in this position, because that will be a fork between these two guys, as well as a discovery against the king. The game will be, as I said, in the Leech's database or in the Leech's study, so you can check it and analyze it even deeper. But the point of the game is to show you the middle game and the end game ideas behind the plans that we discussed earlier. So this is actually for the long castling plan. Now we will see a short castling one, which is which we talked about earlier. D5 takes bishop g5. This is the game between Ivanchuk and Brozone 2648. C6 e3, bishop e7. By the way, you might ask, wait a second, Ivanchuk here allowed bishop f5. Yes, he allowed bishop f5, but for this idea, which is interesting, queen f3. I mean, here you have two ideas. Either you go queen c2 to stop bishop f5 at all, or you go a3, and after bishop f5, you go simply queen to f3, and after bishop g6, takes, and this is a risk-free end game for, or queenless middle game for white. Because of the structure, black has to be super accurate. So after e3, bishop e7 is played, and now after bishop d3, knight bd7, knight g2 e2, castling, and queen c2. After queen c2, rook e8, improving the rook, castling short, and knight f8 in order to improve the other bishop, which is the classical plan of the Queen's Gambit declined. And now the idea of short castling, as we discussed earlier, f3, e4, and again, if we managed, again, this is I need to address, I need to repeat. After I achieve e5, if I achieve e5 followed by f4, white is completely winning. So after f3, bishop e6 is played, and now rook a to d1. Okay, wait a second. Why not e4 in this position? It's kind of early to play that, because after e4 now maybe ideas like takes, knight g4 is there, because now the bishop is under fire, there's knight e3 in the air, so there are some stuff. That's why usually and normally they play rook a to d1 to support the d4 spot. Rook c8, king to h1, and after king h1, knight g6, now a3, again prophylactic moves on the queen side. Sometimes like after e4, de, maybe the a2 pawn will be hanging. Knight d7, you wanted to exchange pieces, but our plan is to have e4, e5. So if we could avoid exchanging the pieces, that will be great. Ivanchuk here played a very interesting move, bishop f4, saying that if you take here, then there's bishop takes h7 ideas. a6, bishop g3. Why bishop g3? Because I wanted to go e4. Maybe sometimes bishop to f2. c5 happens, and e4 just came on time. And because my rook opposing your queen, maybe opening the position will be not in your favor. Knight f6, and as we talked about, e5 followed by what? f4, and now white is completely winning. f5 is coming, and a piece will be down. Trying for c4, bishop f5, knight df6, bishop h3, again and again, f5. You take on h3, you double my pawns, doesn't really matter. After g takes h3, f5 is coming, f6, e6, etc, etc. Knight h8, what type of chess is this? But who's playing black? Is he amateur player? Like 600 rating? No, not 600 rating, not 60 rating. It's 2600, you know, it's a super grandmaster. But now f5, he's just playing like a child. Why? Because this is a very strong strategy. h6, knight g3, improving the knight, bringing the queen to the attack. And after rook d7, knight h5 now, f6 probably is coming, e6 now a very dangerous passer. What is this knight doing here? This is completely losing. He sacked a piece, but in vain. I mean, after taking everything, rook g1 check, queen f5. Now the threat is rook takes g6, queen takes g6, queen takes e6, and the king in the middle of the street, and this position is completely losing for black. Lastly, I will show you an idea which is actually a mixture between the long castling and the short castling. What do you mean? Akopian Vladimir playing with white pieces against Bernd, 2100 almost rated. Player, so c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, takes, bishop g5, bishop e7, e3, c6, and now what's the move? Queen c2 or bishop d3, both works. Castling, bishop d3, knight bd7, knight g2, rook e8. We have seen this idea, bro. Okay, wait a second. After long castling, knight f8, again h3, we want to attack very fast with g4 ideas. b6, g4, a5, and now knight g3. Why knight g3 with the g pawn is here? Because whenever I would like to go to f5 and you take, I have the option to take with the g pawn and opening the g file against your king, my opponent, my dear opponent. So now after knight g3, bishop a6, Bernd played, bishop takes a6, rook takes a6, and now simply knight f5. What a strong knight. And this knight actually reminds me of the Spanish and Italian knight that went to f5 like this way. Anyhow, after knight f5, bishop to b4, now knight e2. Bishop b4 is very interesting move, like trying to take and knight e4, etc. But now knight e2. And after knight e6, bishop h4, because the bishop was under fire, rook a7, king b1, prophylactic move, rook c7. And now the plan of short castling appears. And here I want to talk about a very strategical, important concept. Usually they said, every attack on the side must be countered by attack in the center. I mean, most of us know this idea, but we don't know the origin of why is that. Why is that? Because the play in the center has the most effective value on chess. If you wanted to really attack in the center. If you want really to make a plan, a very serious one, center related one. So after rook c7, here Akopian played f3. What is the idea of f3? e4, e5, f4, f5. Bishop f8 doesn't work. e4, g6, e5. I know, I mean, you can imagine and you cannot imagine. Like after g takes f6, I do believe bishop f6 is winning, but imagine this very interesting idea, like g takes f6, attacking the knight, attacking here, opening the g file. This is actually a torturing. It's not a game of chess, it's a game of torturing here. So after that, black tried g5, bishop g3, knight d7. Why is g5? Why all of these weaknesses like provoked and forced? Because the play in the center was so effective that causes some weaknesses on the side. After knight d7, now h4, bishop g7, h takes g5, knight takes g5, bishop h4, threatening f4. Probably you cannot do without f6, this is the only move. But now bishop takes g5, and after bishop takes g5, his opponent actually resigned. One of the ideas that if you take f takes g5, then there's knight takes g7, and the queen and the rook is attacking on h7, and this position is completely lost for Bernd, and Akopian just win like against 2100 without, I mean, effortlessly, to be honest. Like, okay, some calculations here and there, but it was very easy calculation. And it's like, because when you have a very strategical advantage and you know how to play the strategical plans in the position, then the calculation there won't be that tough, that difficult. So this is the first episode of our series, Master the Queen's Gambit. I hope you find it useful. Again, it's there on the on Lichess, on a study. You can improve it, you can work on it even more. But this is actually, I don't want to say enough, but I wanted to say it's a very good to enrich your chess understanding about the Queen's Gambit and plans and ideas there. I do believe out of 10 games you play with the Queen's Gambit, you might use these plans and you might use the information in this video 5 to 6 to 7 maybe times. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to watch the full series. Thank you. And the full series will be on your left if you're not following from the beginning, which is mostly you are not, because we are just new on YouTube, but we're coming. Hello everyone, with the second video about mastering the Queen's Gambit. I do believe this series is going to be very helpful, so in order not to miss what happened and what will happen, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Yesterday, or the previous video, we talked about d4, d5, c4, e6, what's so-called the queen's gambit declined, and we mentioned that this is one of the most solid yet passive opening for black, but you have to know ideas against it, and we explained in the previous video what to do against it. And in this video we will talk about the Slavs, semi-Slav, Slav, etc. Many naming, but we are not dealing with names, we are dealing with moves here. So let's go to the general plans, and then we will see the two games at the end of the day or at the end of the video. d4, d5, c4, c6, and now we go knight f3. And after knight f3, the most played move is knight f6, but as a bonus for you, because you already subscribed to our channel, I will mention this move, which is dc4, which is probably less played. After dc4, we go simply e3, attacking the pawn, and if you get the pawn, then you're completely fine. I mean, for example, knight f6, bishop takes e4, all your ideas are to seize and to have the center with e4, knight c3, castling, maybe h3, queen e2, rook d1, sometimes some preparatory moves, and whenever you go e4, then you will have a very big advantage, and black here has to be super accurate not to end up losing or end up in a very bad position. So the only justification for this idea is to go b5. By the way, here there is this trick, which is bishop b6. Don't fall for it. After knight g5, there's queen a5 check, and your queen or your knight will be like saying goodbye to the to other pieces. So you could go knight bd2 or knight c3, but just don't fall to it, and this bishop is kind of misplaced here. So let's go back. After d takes c4, e3. The only justification for dc4 is b5, but you simply go a4, attacking one more time, weakening, and if a6 trying to strengthen this idea or this spot here, then takes, and now the key move, which is b3. Why b3? Attacking one more time on c4, and if taking, now you make use of this pin, and you go bishop takes b5. a8 takes b5 cannot be played because of rook takes a8, so bishop d7. You could do many good stuff, like computer says bishop b2, bishop d3, but simply I do believe like this is the easiest, more practical way. Bishop d7, knight d7, and queen takes b3, and now this is actually a weak pawn. You improve your pieces, you double your rooks, and you attack on a6, and having a very nice, easy game. So after knight f3, knight f6 is played, and now I choose the most solid, probably practical move for white, which is e3. Why e3? Because sometimes after lines like, for example, like going too early with the bishop, for example, knight c3, e6, bishop g5, there's this idea which is called the Bot-Phoenix system. This is actually not practical for black, not practical for white, not practical for anybody. It's a very theoretical line. For example, e4, I go b5, supporting that guy. So you go e5, h6, bishop h4, g5, you sacrifice, takes, then knight bd7, and you go g3, queen b6, e takes f6, bishop b7, I castle, c5, etc. And the theory goes on and on and on. So to stop that, we just simply go e3. But what about this bishop? We're coming. So we go e3, and now three moves for black. The main move and the most fighting move is e6. We will come to that later. But what about bishop f5 and bishop g4? You need to know what to do against them. So first, if bishop g4, let's get rid of this very quickly. After bishop g4, we simply go h3, asking this bishop where to go. If bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, then you cannot ask for more. This is a slight advantage. It's not a slight, it's actually more than a slight, but it's not a great advantage for white, but it's permanent one. So whatever you do, for example, you go knight c3, knight d2, bishop d2, bishop e2, bishop d3, whatever you play, you will have a very nice advantage for very, very long time, because this is a bishop pair and easy, very easy play. So bishop takes f3 is not a problem, and if bishop h5, again you will have the bishop pair. After g4, bishop g6, you go simply knight e5, knight b7, you grab the pair of bishops, and you simply play bishop to g2. Like sometimes knight takes g4 is g4, you need to your rook protected, and you're completely good. Your main idea is to go e4, so knight c3. Sometimes you need again some preparations like queen e2, rook d1, then e4, but this is going to be your last idea. And whenever the position opened up, then the bishop pair will say the word, especially the light squares bishop, which is very, very strong. And in order to keep things under somehow control for black, he has to stick being passive. So that's for bishop g4 actually. You don't need any more information to have a very good position out of the opening. So how about bishop f5? Now you can go for the 27, 26, 2500 ideas of knight h4 and then queen b3 and knight c3 and bishop d2 and sometimes long castling, or you can go simply bishop d3. Why bishop d3? Because after bishop d3, first of all, you fasten, or your development will be faster. So you improve the queen very fast, and you have a very clear plan, which is to play e4. Castling knight bd7, and now pay attention. Do not play knight c3 e4, because after knight c3 e4, black has this annoying idea, which is bishop b4. And then bishop takes c3, and it's not easy for you to go e4. So in this opening, remember this, in this opening, we never go knight c3. We don't have knight c3 in our repertoire against Slavs, okay? So what to do? We simply go knight d2 with the same idea of playing e4. And now, after bishop e7, we go e4. We are probably threatening e5, kicking this knight away, having more space in the center. So, this is almost forced. D takes e4, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, queen takes e4, and now castling. And after castling, if you can go bishop g5, you go bishop g5. If you cannot, you go bishop f4. So either bishop f5 or bishop f4. Knight f6, whenever the queen is hit, you go queen e2. This is a safe place for the queen. Queen a5, you go rook fd1. And after rook fd1, rook ad8, this is the last idea that I need you to remember, which is rook d3. And the other rook is coming to the game. Rook ad1. Sometimes rook b3 is coming, sometimes knight e5, rook g3, rook h3. You have a free advantage here in this position. Like, you can play very quickly, you can play many moves, but black has to be super, again, accurate, because sometimes knight e5 might be winning, sometimes rook g3 might be winning, sometimes rook h3 might be winning after moving the knight somewhere, sometimes d5 even can be winning. So black has to be very, again, accurate and has to be awakened throughout all the game. And now, lastly, the most fighting choice for white or for black, which is e6. Whenever a black wants to win, he go for e6. But this actually, which is a very, again, interesting practical idea, we go knight bd2. Is it the most played move? No. But what's interesting about it, according to the ChessBase Online Mega, it scores the best for white, though it's the most practical one. For example, if you go knight c3 now, you're entering a theoretical fight which is needless for anyone below maybe 24, 2500. Because there's knight bd7, and whenever you go bishop d3, there's dc4, bishop c4, b5, and after bishop d3 or bishop b3, you have to choose. There's always b4, there's always c5, with a6, without a6. Sometimes black changes plan and go bishop d6, e5. Black is full of options here, and it's actually very fighting chess are waiting for white. And only one slight mistake by white, it's not going to be equalized. You're going to be under huge pressure, and black will get the advantage. That's why we choose knight bd2. First of all, any DCs is not great, because I take with the knight, improving the knight, and my knight is heading to the e5 square. So you cannot do that. So black says, okay, knight bd7, I go bishop d3, he goes bishop d6. And now simply castling. And after castling, now it's about the bishop. That's why it's very practical. This bishop is not playing, this bishop has to play. First of all, you can go b3, bishop b2. But this is kind of passive chess. Most active chess is e4. And after e4, we're threatening e5. That's why most of your opponent will take here. D takes e4, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, and now you cannot imagine how many times a blunder happened. According to Online Mega on ChessBase, more than 400 times played e5. According to Lichess database, it's more than 10k, 10000, like 10,000s, you know? Too much. e5. Why? In order to improve the bishop here along this diagonal. But it's completely bad. Why? Because I take, you take, I take, you take, and now not queen h5. Not queen h5, which is played here. Because maybe f5 is something. Maybe f5 is something. I simply go for this tactics. Bishop takes h7, king takes h7, queen h5 check. And after king g8, queen takes e5, and you are completely a pawn up. Wait a second, this is opposite colored bishop. I don't want to make it a draw. Bro, wait. It's opposite colored bishop, right? But still, it's a game. It's a middle game. You do have two rooks and a queen. And you do have attacking chances. Like, imagine with me this idea of h4, h5, h6, opening this diagonal and plan this bishop over this. Completely winning. And this is a different series. If you wanted us to talk about middle game strategies, how to play in the opposite colored bishops, what's the strategy, what's the right plans, write me in the comments. Do something. Be active viewer. Don't be passive. So after bishop takes e4, we are not based our repertoire on tricks, though it's the second most played move, e5. The most played move is knight f6 attacking the bishop, and now we go back bishop c2. And after bishop c2, we are threatening bishop g5. And this is annoying pen. So to defend that, h6 has to be played. And now the last move, and then we finished with the general plans and theory. b3. Why is b3? Let's explain. Now, black has only one plan to improve this guy. How this guy can be improved, especially after b3, you can forget about e5 already, because I'm already controlling. I can add more and add more. So e5, it's impossible to be played. So the only idea to prepare for is c5. But as long as my bishop is here, whenever c5 came, either dc or d5, or you take and I take back, however, our bishop here will be not a bishop, as I like to call it. It's a monster, a dinosaur. So after b3, black is under huge pressure, and probably for the next 10 to 15 moves, black is suffering, and probably that suffering will lead to losing. Now we'll show you two games, mainly on this main line, probably the most played one, and the line that you will face the most. One for Giovanni, it's a Brazilian grandmaster, 2600, and one for Nakamura, another grandmaster, probably well known. So d4, playing against Lucina almost 2150. d4, d5, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6 again, c knight c3. It's not the right move order, by the way, but it's going to be at transposition. Bishop d3, bishop d6. What's wrong with bishop d3? There are always ideas like dc, b5, I mean dc, b5, etc. Maybe bishop b4 here. I know I don't like it. Bishop d6, castling, but after e4, it's just a transposition, like d takes e4, knight e4, knight e4, bishop e4. And don't we show games for e5? No, we don't show games for e5 because it's a bad move. And after e5, you don't need to see any ideas. You're just pawn up and without any compensation. So again, knight f6, bishop c2, and h6. And remember, what's the move here? It's again the strong b3. b6 trying to improve the bishop. Okay, bishop b2 improve as well. Bishop b7, and now very interesting move. Queen d3. Wait a second. Now after queen d3, whenever you go c5, maybe I say there's this idea of d5. And now I'm threatening bishop takes f6 followed by queen h7. Oy. And maybe I'm threatening to weaken your e6 pawn at least. Like strategically suffering, tactically suffering. What's this? For what? After queen d3, rook e8 is played, but now rook e1. Queen c7, the other rook is coming. Rook a d8, and now bishop b1. We are playing kind of waiting preparation moves, but it's very, very tough for black. I mean, black at the end played c5, but after c5, d5, now he's suffering. Why he's suffering? Because I'm threatening bishop takes f6 followed by queen h7. Like, for example, ed, bishop f6, gf6, check, followed by checkmate. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So after d5, e5 is played, but now again, a new weakness, a very bad placed bishop here. Very strong bishops along the diagonals. Queen c3 played by Giovanni. And now again, I'm attacking along the diagonal. Again, you cannot go e4. Why? Because I simply take. Or maybe with the rook. Knight takes, there's checkmate. Rook takes, a pawn up. A free pawn up. With attacking chances as well. So queen c3, black tries some sort of counter plays with b5, but then simply knight takes e5, and white now is a pawn up without any compensation. Soon f5 came, so b4, queen g3. Rook e7, f4, and then rook f1, and this is actually very very tough. I mean, very suffering. Like, this is very interesting by Giovanni. Now you cannot take with the knight because of checkmate. If you take with the rook or with any piece, then bishop takes f6, and that's actually what happened. Bishop takes f6 threatening mate, bishop f8 supporting, but now rook e1. Again, white is a pawn up without any compensation. It's not only a pawn up, it's a protected passer. So h4, like with this rook d8, black hoped somehow of bishop takes d8 and like now kind of delay or decrease the pressure, but in vain. h4, h5, queen g5, attacking more, bishop g4, f5, takes, queen g3, rook e4 came, and ideas like, by the way, bishop takes followed by f6 is coming, rook c8, bishop g7, and after bishop g7, black resigned the game, because after you go here, then f6, you don't have this check, you don't have this check, you don't have nothing, and you will lose simply the game by a checkmate. What white has done? Probably nothing magical, as you can see. Black is suffering out of the opening. And believe me, that's going to happen a lot with your games. Probably 7 out of 10 games of the Slav defense, you will use the information of this video. So now the last game with or for Nakamura is playing against Abdusattarov. Abdusattarov was not a very young player back then, like 2600. Yes, it's a title Tuesday game, but I mean, it's Abdusattarov, our champion. Knight bd2, knight bd7, bishop d3, bishop d6, e4. By the way, you could go e4 right away. I decided to make it simpler for you, like short castling first, but anyways, takes, knight f6, bishop to c2, castling short, and now again b6. We said black has to play h6 to stop bishop g5, but Abdusattarov allowed it. Probably he's not like ready for this line. Nakamura just played bishop g5 and crushed him completely. Like h6, bishop h4. He did not stand this pin anymore and played g5, but again bishop g3. And after bishop takes g3, h takes g3 is completely fine for white. But Nakamura said, why not? F takes g3 and opening the f file, and the pressure will be great there. So c5, queen e2. Some ideas like queen e5 to be coming, rook ad1 as well, bishop b7, rook ad1, now dc5 is a threat, the rook is looking at the queen e7 supporting, but now again and again d5. You cannot take, the queen will be taken, and I'm threatening to weaken your pawn structure. Rook a d8, h4, attack on the king side, g4, attack again, h5, and queen e5, provoke weaknesses, and weaknesses. Queen g5 is probably a threat. So to stop that threat, knight e8 is played, but now this guy is not protected anymore. This guy fallen, this guy is falling as well. f5 trying to like decrease the pressure, but Nakamura played knight takes g4. F takes g4 will open the diagonal, will open the file, so many tactics will be coming. Knight g7 attacking the queen, queen g6, again if you take here it's just a checkmate, so you cannot do that. E takes d5, knight h6 check, knight takes f5. And after knight takes f5, attacking the queen, attacking the knight, takes with the bishop. Queen h7 or queen h6 probably is something. Queen h6 followed by bishop e6 as I can see. So rook f7 is the only move, and it's actually for free, so you're going to be lose too many material. So rook d6 attacking the queen, check, and rook a or rook d to e1 attacking the queen. It's, by the way, it's not only a free attack, it's I am materially up. Like even if I exchange everything, I have very great winning chances. Queen g7, bishop h7 check, again another tactics, because if you take, I take, you take, and then rook takes f8 at the end of the line. Rook e7 to be coming as well next. So after bishop h7, king h8, rook f8, queen f8, and now rook e8 just finished the game, and Abdusattarov just resigned the game. Yes, it's not a game that you can build too much on, it's just a blitz game, online blitz game, but Abdusattarov, if he's crushed like that, then there is at least some percent about the opening, and it's actually just a 30 moves game, and he was losing too early, like maybe in move 20. So this is, guys, for the Slav defense. Is I tried to make it as practical as possible, not to delve or dig deep into theory, which is actually not practical. You can dig deep in theory in one day, for example, 3-4 concentrations hours, and memorize everything, understand everything. But believe me, in 1 month and 2 in a year, you cannot memorize everything. So it's good to build your game of chess and your openings on understandings. So if you forget, then at least you understand. It's a problem when you forget and you don't understand. Sometimes, yes, you have to memorize sometimes, but at least memorization with understanding. First of all, you memorize better. Second of all, if you forget, you play a very good game of chess. But if you forget without understanding, it's a huge problem. This is the second episode of Mastering the Queen's Gambit. If you are interested in watching the full series from the beginning, you can find it on your left. On your right, there is a circle. You can subscribe and turn on the bell notification to reach us, or to the content reach you whenever we update it. Thanks for watching and see you soon. Have a nice one. If you're looking for a practical repertoire, not depending on memorization, and a real one, it's not something like, for example, a system. No, it is a repertoire. Then you are in the right place here, and this is actually the third episode. We're talking about mastering the Queen's Gambit, which is started by d4, d5, c4. In the first episode, we talked about the Queen's Gambit declined e6. In the second one, we talked about the Slavs, but we cannot actually go for knight f6 without talking about maybe it's not a trendy line, but recently, like in the previous 5 years probably or so, started to gain more popularity. So after c4, which is called the QGA, Queen's Gambit accepted. And after d takes c4, Black says, okay, I don't want to enter theories, I want to take on c4, and hopefully in the future I can exchange c5 with d4 and like having open d file, c file without too many complications and doing good. And actually computer is not mad about this choice for Black. It's a choice, it's fine, and Black is okay. And from the beginning I have to say, you cannot take this opening down easily. But what's advantage of this as white? You do have kind of permanent advantage thanks to the extra central pawn that you are going to have. So after d takes c4, my recommendation again is practical, solid, based on understanding. Here we go, knight f3. Quickly, why not e4? Because e5 is interesting for Black, c5 is interesting for Black, knight f6 is interesting for Black, knight c6 is interesting again. Also b5 is an idea. Why? Because e4 is weak, so maybe it can be attacked, it's weakened, yeah? So that's why I recommended this idea of knight f3. Okay, wait a second, why not e3? Because of e5 again, very interesting move. And if you are a Queen's Gambit accepted, I recommend you checking out this line, especially like after e5, bishop takes, knight c6, knight f3, e4, knight d2. There's this interesting idea, queen g5. For example, knight takes e4 is the best move, then queen takes, attacking, knight g3, then queen g3. And this is a very crazy line and very crazy game of chess is going to be happening, which is requires too many memorization, too many opening knowledge, not based on understanding. What can you understand of this position? It can be changed in one move. So that's why we choose knight f3. And this should be your choice. So after knight f3, knight f6 is the most played move, but we cannot done without talking about why this idea is not great, like the protection of the pawn, because we go first a4, and now a6 is obvious, cannot be played, takes, and the rook will be taken. So the only protection is c6, and now I go e3, and after e6, this is the only move that I want you to remember. And after that, you're going to have a great, constant, almost permanent advantage, just b3. After b3, c takes b3, bishop takes b5. And I do believe we have seen this before. Like after, for example, bishop d7, you could go queen takes b3, knight c3, bishop a3, castling. And this is actually a weak pawn. We have seen some kind of these ideas in the Slav, I do believe, in the second episode of Mastering the Queen's Gambit. So after knight f6, we choose e3. What's our idea? Our idea is simple. We want our pawn back, so we take the pawn and then improve, finish the development, and then go for e4. Then seize the center. But now we just go. We have to calm down a bit. We cannot like, oh, Queen's Gambit accepted, we need to win immediately. There's no immediate win. So after e3, Black has two choices. The first one is bishop g4, the second one is e6. Probably e6 is the main line and the most played move, but I want to talk for a few seconds for this move or about this move. Here, I go simply bishop takes c4, gaining my pawn back. And my ideas are easy. I go knight bd2, I go b3, I go bishop b2, and then I castle. And every single piece of mine is doing great. And a quick idea I wanted to mention, like for example, castling bishop b7, knight bd2, castling b3, say knight bd7, bishop b2. Why the bishop in such a structure is great on the square? And again, we have seen this theme before. That's what makes this series almost like connected. Because black cannot generate any kind of counterplay without going for c5 or e5. With the bishop being placed here, e5 cannot be a real idea because I have once, twice, probably thrice. So the only idea for black to generate counterplay is to go for c5. And after c5, you do have two choices. After you take, you push, or you wait. Three choices actually. Maybe pushing is not a serious one. But the point is, your bishop will be great along this diagonal. Either you take or your opponent will take. You're completely doing great. So this is just everything you needed to know about bishop g4. It's not a theoretical line. You have a small advantage, but a permanent one. And probably your play is going to be simple. But just remember ideas of b3, bishop b2. So let's get back now to the main stuff. e3, we want our pawn back. We talked about b5, a4, b3 ideas. So e6 is the main move, and we take bishop takes. And now a6. a6 actually, it might not be the most played move, but it's the most common move. Like if you study, for example, whatever, bishop e7, then a6, b5 is an idea. If, for example, you study whatever, like bishop d6, then a6. If you study c5, then a6 is coming. So a6 is a typical move in this structure for black. And many ideas for that, mainly b5. And in this position, I want you to remember this idea. It's actually a general concept, but it's a very important specifically in this position. The general concept, don't go automatically against your opponents or against your opponent's moves. Like for example, your opponent, like many players, like, oh, my opponent played a5, he wanted to play a4, then I go a4. Wait a second, a5 might be a mistake. Don't go a4. So now in this position after a6, actually this is a very interesting move because many players will go a4. And now, because this knight is not developed yet, it can go to b4 now. Either with c5 or without c5. b4 square is completely weakened. What do I mean by a weak square? It's a square that cannot be covered by pawns. So you already moved your c pawns twice, disappeared. And you move your a pawn twice, disappeared. Or not disappeared, but the protection of the b4 square is completely gone. That's why here in this position, we allow b5. Wait, but this is kind of tempo. Like b5, no, I don't like this kind of chess. My opponent now is happy. Let him be happy or her for a few seconds because our idea now is great. I go bishop e2 simply. And after bishop b7, I say to my opponent, thanks for coming earlier. a4 very strong. And after a4, we're attacking. If you take, then a6 square or a6 pawn is very weak, because you open the a file. And if you push, which is probably the most or the must played move, now simply I can now thank you for the c4 square because d5 is already disappeared and b5 or the b pawn cannot control the c4 square. So you simply go knight bd2. And after knight bd7, what to play? What to put this bishop? Simply b3. Why? Because again, in these structures, black cannot do without e5 or c5, especially here. The c file is open, so c file has to be coming. This bishop after that, either you take or you let your opponent take. This bishop will be a great piece. That's perfect. So b5 is not an issue, and we simply castle. So what's left is this idea, c5. And now, if you like endings, this is not my recommendations, but if you like endings, or if you forget, or if you're lazy, tired, did not sleep, you could go simply dc5. Exchange queens, b3, bishop b2, knight bd2, rook d1, rook c1 are doing perfectly fine. But if you are looking for a middle game fight, for attacking fight, then I recommend you this great move, queen e2. Well timed queen e2. Why? Because if you delay this, for example, for one move, say h3, and your opponent is playing knight c6, then you cannot go for queen e2, which is actually a chance has to be taken. So after c5 queen e2, what's the idea of that move? The idea is mainly to make a room for the rook to come to the game earlier, and it's going to be very strong rook. And now, for example, if c takes d4, you could go rook d1 and take with a knight, but we are happily going for the isolated pawn. The isolated pawn in this structure is great. Why? Because we have a great development firstly. Secondly, we do have the idea of rook d1. So now, for example, bishop e7, rook d1, and we will see some games for that idea. And after castling knight c3, now the bishop will be heading to the g5 square, rook ac1. Probably ideas like bishop b3, bishop c2, queen d3 is coming, knight e5 is coming. And now, pay attention. After you manage to play knight e5, then, for example, say, one of the strategies for black is to control the d5 square. This is the way to fight against the isolated one. Like, for example, knight b7, bishop b3, knight b6. Say a3, for example, knight d5, I go knight e5. Now, very important idea of rook d1 is the rook left, rook d3. This is a super very strong move. After rook d3, there's rook g3, rook h3, bishop c2, attacking here. The queen might join the attack at any time. Bishop g5 to be coming. Black most likely is going to be checkmated, or at least he needs to be super accurate not to get checkmated. So that's if actually he played c5. Again, b5 is not a great move. We simply go bishop d3, and if not, c takes d4. We do have ideas here. For example, we talked about this a4, very interesting. Wait a second, but you did not talk about c4. After c4, white now is strategically almost winning. Why? Because we do have a free center. There's no pressure against our center. e4 is coming without any pressure. Very well supported. The knights can be coming. The bishop as well. This is weak. Rook d1, rook e1. The other rook will be coming to d1. Black is suffering strategically. Doesn't know what to do. And whenever e5 came, probably d5. I mean, okay, probably you will win a pawn, but for example, you cannot d5. And this is a protected passer, and this bishop is useless along this diagonal. So the only actually idea is cd4. Again, ed4, bishop b7. Again, our idea, which is rook d1. Does knight c6 prevent rook d1? Quick question for you. Unfortunately for black, it doesn't. Because if you take here, there's this famous tactics. Bishop b5, and then the queen will be taken. So after ed4, bishop b7, as we talked before, rook d1, and then knight c3, and then bishop g5. And the main idea for black is knight bd7, knight, like for example, this way, knight b6, knight d5, then we go knight e5 again, queen d4 does not work because of this. And we move the bishop away, probably rook d3, rook g3 also to be happening, and white is doing great. This is actually the general explanation. I do believe it's very useful. I do believe you don't need to see more games for that, but let's see a couple of games. 3 games we will see. First one is actually a very instructive game. It's Kovalenko against Bortnik Mykola. Bortnik is 2400. Kovalenko is 2656 rated player. So d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6, c4, dc. This is another move order, but it's completely fine. e3, bishop takes c4. After bishop takes c4, a6, and again, should we go a4? Never. We go we go simply castling. b5, bishop e2. And bishop b7, what's our move? a4, exactly. Why a4? Because we want to fight for the c4 square. b4, knight bd2, knight bd7. What to do with this bishop? Exactly, b3. Now you learn the lesson. b3, bishop b2. And you're doing great. And I mean, black cannot do without c5, and c5 came. Shall I take? Not necessarily, because you could do it whenever you would like to. And if your opponent takes, it doesn't add anything to him. It just improved my pieces, like either with the queen, with the bishop, or with the knight. The main idea, or the main strategical idea, is that this bishop is on fire. So knight f e5, cd4, bishop d4, knight c5 played. And now very deep concept. If you manage in such structure to enter, which is serious, I mean, you have a serious chance here to enter an end game or middle game with a knight fighting against the dark square's bishop, that will be strategically winning for white. How that can be coming? Easily. Bishop f3 first of all. Bishop takes f3. I cannot take with the queen because of knight b3, but it's fine. Knight takes. Rook c8, rook c1. Knight fe4, queen c2, improving the queen. And now queen c7. And what's the move now? Bishop takes c5. Why bishop takes c5 is the move? Because black is trying, or white is trying, to achieve what we talked about. And probably he will. And after knight fd2, rook fd8, what's the move? Knight e4. Wow, great concept. Either you go passively with your knight back, or you exchange it. I will exchange it for sure as black. And now, suffer, my opponent suffer. Computer might say this is slightly better for white. But this is a huge advantage for white, actually. It's not. Because it seems like black is a piece down. And after bishop f6, rook fd1, again, I want to remind you what the rule says. Queen and knight cooperate better than a bishop and a knight, and the queen. So g3. Why g3? Making a room for the king, but why not h3? Because this room actually it's a vague room, because the bishop can cover it later on. But g3, no, you cannot do anything. g6, h4, h5, king g2. I don't mind any source of endings, and soon black will sacrifice a pawn, not to, or in order to free himself, kind of. Knight d6 is a great move. Now the rook is under fire. Also rook b7 is a threat, so you have to take. I take back. Now queen c5 attacking the queen or attacking the knight. Instead of defending passively, black or white found this idea. It's now the transformation of advantage. Either you allow knight d6 or you exchange the knight with the bishop here. Now white is a pawn up and he's completely winning. Like just very little accurate moves. Queen b6 protecting f2. If you take on e5, I'll take on a6 and we'll have two passers easily winning. So queen e2 supporting the pawn, but simply a5, b4 and queen c5. Everything is protected. One check. Queen c6 prevent checks, and then the pawn is going to be queening very soon, and it's not even a race, and white is completely winning. This is a very instructive game. I advise you to see it again and again and again and again. Actually, whenever you mention to me the QGA, the Queen's Gambit accepted, this game appeared to my mind, and you can find it actually on YouTube. So after dc4, knight f3, this is a game between Daniil Dubov, 2700, against Nihal Serin, 2628. e3, e6, bishop c4, c5, castling a6. What's our move now? Great. Queen e2. You're paying attention. b5, bishop d3. Takes. But now, instead of the classical, typical, normal rook d, ed4 followed by rook d1, a4 Dubov played. Crazy game. B takes a4, rook takes a4, and the game finished in 8 moves. Yes, 8 moves. Bishop b7, rook takes d4, attacking the queen. Queen b6, knight bd2, and the rook is under fire, but no, rook h4. Bishop b7, knight c4, the queen is under fire. Queen c7, and now bishop d2. After castling, simply bishop c3 in this position. Looking towards the king, look at these two monsters, actually, not bishops. Nihal, in order to decrease probably the pressure, he played g6, but now Dubov played knight g5, and after knight g5, knight d5 is played, because now bishop takes f6 followed by knight takes h7 is probably a threat. Knight d5 is played by Nihal, trying to pin the knight, attacking the knight, hoping things will be great, but now white to play and finish the game. What a move. Now the point is, if you take here, simply bishop takes h7 is going to be a checkmate. And if you don't take, you will be checkmated for sure, because like what can you do? Like you cannot protect if this simplest move is bishop takes f6, and you're completely winning again. So this is probably another game, and the last game of our session today after d4, d5, c4, dc. I mean, we don't go e3 because there is e5 now. Very interesting idea. We go knight f3 first, but this is a transposition. c5 castling, and after a6, what's our move? Exactly, queen e2. Why do I insist in this move? Because probably it's the most played one. I mean, the most played setup for black. Bishop d3, again c4 is a bad move, so cd, ed, bishop e7, we go knight c3, we go rook d1, after castling we simply go bishop to g5, after bishop g5, knight bd7, and now actually you don't even wait knight bd7, you could go knight e5 right away, because again, according or thanks to this rook being here, such ideas are not great, because always there is some stuff along this open file, so it's not recommended. And actually, again, psychologically it's not easy, because black knew that he or she has to play against this isolated pawn. So why to correct the correct the isolated pawn for free, and you improve my pawns and you put yourself under probably huge attack. Anyhow, so after knight e5, h6, bishop h4, keeping the pressure, knight b6, and now interesting plan. Actually, it's not necessary. Again, I do believe you could do what we have talked about, like for example, rook a c1, bishop b1, rook d3, rook g3, rook h3, etc, etc. But here white found another interesting idea, which is bishop takes f6. The point is, I'll give you the dark squared bishop, but I will have a control over e5 square or over c5 square. Very strong knights. Knight e5, knight c5. Now the bishop is under fire. Bishop d5, rook ac1. Always bishop takes a2, there is b3. So bishop d6, bishop b1. Maybe ideas like queen c2 to be coming along this file. f5 is played, but now again see, rook c3. We have talked about this rook left. Queen e8, f4, and b3. Easily rook g3. The rook is coming to the attack. Queen d2. Very interesting, actually, way of playing for white. I mean, giving up the dark squares or dark squared bishop and then put everything on dark squares, so you cannot feel the absence of that bishop. King h7, rook c1, queen e8, bishop d3, improving the position slowly. See again, dark squares, dark squares, dark squares, dark squares, dark squares, dark squares. Like the only piece that is not on the dark squares is the light squared bishop. Maybe this pawn as well. So bishop takes b5, e takes or d takes, and now queen d6, and entering using the d file takes, bishop d5, knight takes a6, very interesting move. Actually, some ideas like check and then rook g6 to be coming. If rook a6, probably bishop d5 as well. Too many pawns, too many material. So knight c4, the sacrifice is not accepted. This is actually a very strong pawn. d7 as well, and now a4. You cannot take, you cannot you cannot touch because of rook takes c4. So rook d7, sacrificing the exchange, but in vain. Rook c1 and then rook c8, rook c7, either you exchange or you'll be checkmated. And here in this position, Artyom resigned this game. I mean, he's 2200 even rated player, but nothing to be actually done. This is the Queen's Gambit accepted. I hope you're doing or you understand it very well. Don't forget to check the whole playlist of mastering the Queen's Gambit. So far we talked about the e6, the c6, the dc. In the near future we will talk about d4, knight f6, and ideas like, for example, Nimzo Indian, ideas like King's Indian, ideas like Benko, Benoni's, for example, c5, etc, etc. You will be a complete Queen's Gambit master after watching the series. So never forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified whenever we publish our next mastering the Queen's Gambit episode. Thanks for watching again. See you soon. Have a nice one. Hello everyone, with part 4 talking about mastering the Queen's Gambit opening. After d4, knight f6, c4, e6, today we're going to talk about the Nimzo Indian. Reminder, in the previous 3 videos we talked about d4, d5, c4, e6. This was the first, the second, the Slavs. Third video, we talked about d takes c4, qga, Queen's Gambit accepted. So make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button so you get notified whenever the series is continuing. So today it was a challenge for me what to recommend after d4 knight f6, c4 e6 knight c3, and bishop b4, what's so called the Nimzo Indian. Because too many systems for white and too many systems for black, and I kind of discovered, or not discovered, but kind of reached the point where my recommendation is probably the most practical one, and it's not my own invention. It's already invented before, it's already played before by Nepo, by Giri, probably in the World Chess Championship against Ding, or Ding against Nepo, and later on Nepo against Giri played it. So after bishop b4, I recommend this move e3, because too many here for white. I mean, there's queen c2, and there's like knight f3, there's g3 stuff, and there's a3 stuff, f3 stuff, too many stuff. But I decided to go for the most solid and probably most ambitious one, e3. After e3, the common move that black has to play is short castling. Whatever he plays, he will castle short. Now reminder before I dig deeper. In the Lichess website, you can find a study, and there you find what we already talked about and what we will talk in future. I will leave a link in the description so you can reach it out. So after castling short, now I recommend this very interesting move a3. And these two exclamation mark, because of the practicality of this move. It's super duper practical. You will understand everything after this video, and you will be ready to fight against the Nimzo Indian. So after a3, if not, if moving the bishop away, for example, bishop here, it's losing a piece, so that's clear. And if bishop e7, thanks for the center. By the way, we forgot to mention this. I mean, the Nimzo Indian is created or played firstly by Nimzovich, and his idea and his concept was, I don't want to fight for the center with pawns. No, I don't want to go with d5. I do want to fight for the e4 square, for the center, with pieces. So bishop b4 is played in order to pin the knight, so e4 is not available. And after e3, castling a3, now white saying, okay, you want or not you want, you have to take now, otherwise I will have this great center and I will have a big advantage out of the opening. That's why after a3, bishop takes c3 is the only move, and b takes c3 is the only move. And now, the only move for black, it's not computer-wise, but it's in a practical chess-wise, is c5. Other than c5, maybe black is suffering, and somehow you can say losing. Let's navigate. First of all, this is a very bad move. Why this is a very bad move? I mean, in terms of strategy, because one of the ideas of bishop b4 and bishop takes c3 is to double the pawns, because you are giving the bishop pair. Now white has the bishop pair, and the compensation for, or the argument for black, when we ask him or her, why did you give white the bishop pair? Then he said, okay, I created the double pawns. But when you go d5, then you simply give me the chance to get rid of that double pawns whenever I would like to. So here, instead of c takes d5 followed by c4, first I decided, no, let's go knight e2, knight g3 first, and then c takes d5 followed by c4, and white is doing more than great. So d5 is not a good move. The two remainder move is either b6 or d6. Let's start talking about d6. Now if d6, here's our idea. d6 is kind of slow move, that's why c5 is the best one, it's kind of faster. And now white gets the chance to go for f3 and e4 right away. And this is actually the inspiration that led me to this explanation. And this is actually a game between Giri and Nepo, but Nepo was white. And after f3, knight c6, the idea was f3. And simply, you cannot, if I ask you this game between whom, it might be from the 20th century or something. Why? Because the next moves for white is like rook a2, Like rook a2, g4, h4, h5, g5, rook g2. I mean, very crazy. Every single pawn is moved and crazy attack. But it's very, very risky for black because we are attacking the king. And here Nepo played h4, b6 and h5, bishop a6 and rook a2. This is actually a typical move and we will see it again and again. And here we should mention that black's main idea to fight against these double pawns is to play this knight c6, b6, bishop a6 and knight a5. And this is actually what the great theoretician Giri played, knight a5 in this position. But one of the ideas for white to fight this is to sacrifice the pawn. I don't want to protect it even, like g4. If you want to take it, take it. Giri doesn't want to waste time and play the queen c6, now rook g2. With attack. See, computer-wise, computer will grab the pawn, will hold on that pawn, and probably will win this. But I mean, when you imagine yourself black here in this position, like after bishop c4, for example, bishop c4, queen c4, knight e2 played by Nepo, and then g5, and then g6. I mean, if you flip the flip the board like this way, and imagine yourself being black here. These two rooks are looking at your king with the bishop, and the queen is easily can come to the game with the knight as well. It's very, very super risky. And if black is fine in this position, there is a requirements for that is to be very super accurate. Any inaccuracy by black, probably it's game over. So after g6, actually, Nepo won the game and won the game with a very nice sacrifices like rook g1, and you can go deep in that game analyzing like rook g8. See, a very nice game, full of sacrifices, full of ideas. Queen c1, rook takes g5, rook g3, rook g1. Again, another check, another attack, like attacking here, attacking there, attacking everywhere, and very soon, white simply won that game in a very nice way. Queen f6 check, knight f4, and in this position, Giri resigned. Because there's a check, there's knight e6 to be coming, probably knight e6, and when the queen moved, then there's f8 queen, and that's interesting. Like this knight came here very early on in order to attack the pawn, but the pawn is not here, and everything is not here, and the game finished while the knight stayed on a5. So again, if d6, we simply go f3, e4, with the ideas of rook a2, g4, h4, h5, g5, rook g2, and attack. Clear? And we don't waste a time actually with the bishop, because in many cases, why this system is super interesting, because in many cases, white wastes the time with this idea, for example, bishop d3. But why to play bishop d3? Because later on, after bishop takes c4, you will go bishop takes c4. So why to lose a tempo, very important one, moving the bishop? No need. That's why d6 is not actually the best move in this position. So we talked here about c5 as practically the only move. So how about b6 in this position? After b6 now, it's again a slow move. We go bishop d3. And after bishop b3 or bishop d3, there's this idea of bishop b7. It has to be played. But wait a second. You mentioned that the main idea for black is knight c6, knight a5, bishop a6. So how about bishop a6 right away? Again, slow move. Now white will go e4. And after e4, white has a very annoying threat. The very annoying threat here is bishop g5. That pen is very dangerous. Never allow it if you're black. That's why here you will see like either h6, knight e8, or in some cases knight d7. Black has to do something now. And that's what again makes this system very practical for white. It's very important for black to be accurate. Knight e8, for example, and after knight e8, what's the plan for black? Knight c6, knight a5, right? We go simply e5, improving the bishop. Wait a second, after e5, I can attack you. I can protect, no worries, f4. You go knight c6, and now in this position, I go knight f3. Supporting again, and if you are greedy enough, and you go knight a5, guess what? White here is winning. I'll give you 5 seconds to pause the video and figure out why. Very typical, very thematic, very common. Bishop takes h7, Greek gift. After bishop takes h7, king h7, knight g5, and the queen h5 is coming. And this is actually completely winning for white again. Oy, oy, oy. That's why the idea of bishop a6 is very slow. So again, let's go back and let's make it clearer. If you go d6, I go f3, e4, rook a2, g4, h4, etc., etc. Very great idea, very great position. Now we talked about that. Good. b6, we go what? We go bishop d3. If bishop a6, already clear. We go e4, threatening bishop g5, and etc., etc. And if knight e8, then we go e5, f4, knight f3, and remember this Greek gift. So how about bishop b7? If bishop b7 in this position, black tries to stop this idea of e4, but I am insisting in that, so f3. c5, and now simply e4. And now what is the threat as we talked about it? Bishop g5. So wait a second. You might ask a question, like for example, say a6. For example, you might say, okay, what's that? I mean, why bishop g5 is very strong? Like I could go this, that, and I'm fine. I completely can say you're losing here, or black is losing because we do have h4, we do have f4, and you do have many weaknesses around your king. That's why in this position, after e4, knight e8 has to be played, and after knight e8, we go bishop e3, improving the bishop. Knight c6, and now in this position, very nice move, knight h3. Rook c8, we just castled. And this is actually a game between Grischuk and Caruana. And Caruana is very strong in terms of preparation and in terms of opening, but this game did not last long. Caruana took, because now one of the ideas for white, as we will see later, is d5. So Caruana took first, tried to do some counters against the c4 pawn, but simply rook c1. And after rook c1, e5 came, d5 followed, knight a5, trying to attack here on c4, but now very interesting deep move by Grischuk, rook c3. Why rook c3 is a very interesting move? Because I am ready now to support the c4 pawn by more pieces, if I would like to. But the way I see it, one of the main ideas for white is to clear the third rank and go for f4. And then this rook actually is going to attack from g3 or h3 after knight g5, for example. See how the game continues. The game lasts only 10 moves from here. Knight f6. Caruana played knight f6. He messed up. Bishop g5, very strong. He tried for h6 and g5, and he said, or he thought, I am fine, I can go knight h5, knight f4 afterwards, but in vain. Knight takes g5, very strong idea. After knight takes g5, I mean, if you take, I take back. And ideas like f4, as we said, f takes e5, rook takes f6, the rook can join the game. Actually, also the queen can join the game very quickly, very easily. Very harmonic play. So after knight g5, Caruana went back knight e8. Probably this is his idea, like if you move the knight, you lose the bishop. But I do have this very strong move, or Grischuk have this very strong move. H takes g5, f takes g5, and after knight g7, very thematic, nice move. Rook f6, and after rook f6, bishop a6 attacking the pawn, but sorry my friend, you're too late now. Queen g4, knight takes c4, and now simply bishop e1. What is the idea? The idea is queen h4, rook h6, and checkmate. Knight e8 play, trying to do something, but something is not enough. Rook h6, and after king g7, simply queen h5, and Caruana resigned the game. Because rook h7 will be, or will lead to a checkmate very, very, very soon. So actually we're done now with this idea of b6. So again, our idea is to go for f3, e4 and attack. Bishop e3, bishop d3, knight h3 somewhere, castling, especially if bishop b7. Okay, now how about our best move? c5. Please, don't tell me that c5 will stop our ideas. Actually, yes and no. Yes, if you went for f3, I tried to make f3 work, but no, it's a bad move. Because black is super fast. I mean, what's good about c5? It is a fast move. So black has to be, or white has to be kind of alert here. Otherwise, white will be in trouble. For example, after knight c6, e4, now d6, and if you go bishop e3, there's this idea, for example, queen a5. And again, black is super fast. Now after queen a5, this is under fire, and c takes d4 is under fire, and probably knight takes d4 because this pawn is under the pin. Maybe here king f2 is an idea, but again, queen takes c3. So let's go back. Now, I recommend this idea, and it's not actually my move. It's Caruana's move. Is knight e2. What is the point of knight e2? The point of knight e2, I wanted to go knight g3 followed by e4. Now knight c6 is played, knight g3, and now black has two main ideas. Either he or she goes for d6 e5, or b6 bishop a6 knight a5. Again, two ideas. d6 e5 or b6 bishop a6. So here in this position, the main move is b6. But I asked, what if d6 e5? And who answered me was, I do believe he's an Armenian grandmaster, Aram Hakobian, and he played this exact position too many times, and he played this a3 too many times, and now, very nice idea. It's actually not new for us. If I give you, for example, if I asked you to give me 5 options, probably it will be one of them. Probably, I'm not sure. Rook a2. Very interesting. It's kind of waiting, and in the meantime, kind of improving, preparing the attack. So after rook a2, e5 idea came, and now d5. And black seems to be happy. Now life is easy. I'll go knight a5, b6, bishop a6, attack on c4. The knight cannot protect actually, because normally knight f3, knight d2 to support the pawn, but that's not there. But here's the idea, e4. Again, what is the threat of e4? Bishop g5. So knight e8, the typical reaction, and now bishop d3. You go b6, you wanted to go bishop a6, okay, I castle, bishop a6, and look at this move. This computer move. Wow. a4. Saying that, I don't care. IDK. I don't care. You attack me, I don't care. One of the ideas of a4 actually is to prevent knight takes c4. Because after knight takes c4, now queen e2, and you don't have b5, you'll lose a piece. So wait a second, don't I have like bishop takes? Yes, you do have bishop takes, but again, bishop takes, knight takes, and now queen d3, attacking the knight. Again, there's no b5, you go back knight a5, and now c4, there's no b5, there is no even c4. This is your extra pawn, but it cannot be playing, it cannot taking apart. And now, the very strong idea, and we are well prepared for that, because black was busy grabbing a pawn, very greedy style, f4. Thanks to our rook a2 move, now we do have rook a to f2, attacking with the f file. Whenever you take, I take back. My knight can join the attack via f5 or h5. This is actually not this is a disaster for black. Imagine yourself being black here, you don't have a good piece. Every single piece is bad for black. Nothing can be done. It's actually a hopeless case. That's why, after knight e2, knight c6, knight g3, the idea of d6, e5 is not effective, and black needs to be very, very fast to go for bishop a6. Now again, the usual move, e4, threatening what? Bishop g5. Wait a second, I'm threatening bishop g5, but my opponent is not responding. But if he responded, we know what to do. Again, we do have d5 ideas, we do have bishop d3 ideas. So now in this position, if knight e8, we go d5, attacking the knight. Knight a5, we go bishop d3. You go bishop a6, attacking. We do have this idea now, queen e2. Wait a second, queen e2, don't we have knight here? Attacking 3 times. And this is actually one of the main ideas for black. Yes, but I do have e5. Very strong. And if you take here, computer says knight h5, white is winning. And here I really advise you, I recommend you to check out the study only chess, especially if you reach this time, this minute of the video. Now after knight h5, the sacrifices will be coming. Probably, the way I see it, knight g7, maybe it's just winning. Knight takes, check, queen here, and nothing can be done. Maybe queen g4 even. Like, what can you do? Like this bishop cannot be moving because the knight will be lost. This knight cannot move. This knight will be lost. This knight cannot move. The bishop will be lost. And my bishop is doing the attack and doing the pen. My queen is ready to the attack and doing the pen. Like, it's something very, very, very interesting. So that's why here black decided, okay, I'm not afraid of bishop g5 in this position because this knight here is misplaced. Kind of. And after bishop g5, I can go h6. And you do have troubles because if bishop here, then maybe g5. And you don't have any sacrifices, you have nothing. Yeah, right. But here first, we go d5. You go knight a5. And we go with our idea, bishop g5. And now there's no time to grab the pawn because we have a dangerous threat. We are threatening e5. So h6. And now, our last great idea of today's session. Try to find it out. Wow, what a move. h4. Ooh, what a move. And now after h4, actually, psychologically, black is losing. Psychologically, black is losing. Why? Because he thought h6 is the key to get rid of the pen, but now you cannot. Now e5 is coming, probably queen f3 is coming, maybe knight h5. The point of h4, if you take, I take back, and now if this knight moved, for example, knight back, then queen h5 is just winning. Threatening mate, f6, the usual suspect, g6, and then queen h7 checkmate. So after h6, after takes, you have to. Now, for example, g6 trying to stop queen h5. Who cares? f4. And I'm coming with e5. Oh, but now wait a second. You don't have queen h5. I can go back with my knight. Yes, but I do have queen g4. And I'm coming with my queen. And only computer can hold maybe +1 for white or something. This is actually for me, this is a losing position for black. Black has already lost the game. Nothing to be done. Like queen h4 is very strong. Don't have a clear defense. And my attack is coming. And actually, I do believe I have time to move the king, the bishop, and bring the other rook to the game. You don't have counters. You are counterless. You don't have counter as black. So, I kind of feel you, especially if you reached this this time in the video. It's kind of new approach probably for you. But believe me, it's very practical. It's very difficult for black. Black has to be super accurate because the clear plan, what's interesting about this system, the clear plans or the universal plans is not working. And attacking the pawn is not easy to be found. Actually, when I see this idea or while preparing for this video, I am kind of afraid what to do against it because it's super practical, and if you're not really ready, you will have lots of troubles. Now go try this out and let us know in the comments like what's the results. Maybe you can share some games with us in the comments section. Thank you again for watching, and see you in the upcoming videos where I still have some Indian defense to attack or to navigate. King's Indian, Grunfeld, etc. Benoni. See you soon. Have a nice one. You can check out the previous master, the Queen's Gambit. Have a nice one. If you are serious about improving your chess and you are looking to opening repertoire that's practical and serious, then here you go. This is the 5th episode of Mastering the Queen's Gambit. We talked about in the early first 3 episodes about d4, d5, c4, e6 the first one, c6 the second one, and then the Queen's Gambit accepted. Moving from there, we started dealing with knight f6 ideas, and after d4, knight f6, c4, e6. Recently, in the previous episode, we talked about the Nimzo Indian, and in our today's session, in our today's video, we are going to talk about c5, the Benoni. One of the advantages of playing knight c3, let me here share an information. Here, white has 3 main plans or 3 main moves, knight c3 or knight f3 and g3. Actually, knight f3 and g3 kind of similar because you can transpose between each other. But if you go knight f3, then here the Queen's Gambit is even better because the ideas of f3, e4 won't be existed. Also, there is the Bogo Indian, very strong, Queen's Indian, very strong, and the Benoni makes sense. But if you go with knight c3, then you need to deal with bishop b4, which is the Nimzo Indian, which I do believe in our previous video we I mean, we showed very practical ideas. And now we are going to talk about the Benoni, and here the Benoni is not great in this move order. After c5 we go d5. This is probably the only move to fight for the like real advantage. And after d5, e takes d5, c takes d5, d6, we go e4 right away. We open the diagonal for the bishop, we support the d5 pawn, and we prepare for this idea, which is f4. Why do I choose this line? Because this is one of the most dangerous one against the Benoni. First, second, black has to know very exactly what to do. After f4, bishop g7, and this is actually our main position, and this is the position that you mainly will get if your opponent choose the Benoni. Now we go bishop b5. What I like about bishop b5 is the normal replies for this move loses immediately. Like for example here, knight bd7 loses, which is actually automatic move if you play, for example, blitz game, bullet game, or even a rabbit game. I mean, I just improved my knight and play the game, but it's loses because of this idea. e5, very strong move, very surprising move, attacking the knight, and now I'm threatening as well e6, and this knight is pinned, cannot move. Wow. D takes e5, f takes e5, and say for example knight h5, and now we simply go e6. Actually, I continued this line because I felt like it's good to know, because sometimes you see this, okay, there's a queen h4, I'm afraid, I am not sure, but actually you're winning. You simply go g3, and after g3 there's this idea of knight takes g3, but remember you're a piece up there, yeah? This knight cannot go anywhere. And after knight takes g3, h takes g3, the queen is under fire. And now two moves. If queen takes g3, then simply king d2. Simply king d2. Your king is safe. The knight is coming to g2. King c2 probably. Improve the bishop, improve the queen, bring the rook. You're completely winning because materially you are very much up. Now you are a piece up, and you're going to be two pieces up with no serious counterplay against you. Because after e d7, what's interesting about e d7, you exchange one more piece. So it's not actually a bishop pair, so no more pieces to attack the king, especially on light squares, for example, on c2. So let's go back. After bishop b5, we said only one move, which is knight f d7, not the normal move. But again, one more line here. After knight bd7, we go e5, as we mentioned. Take, knight h5, e6, queen h4, check, g3. And after knight takes g3, h takes g3, if you take the rook, then simply I go bishop e3, and then this knight will be taken, the queen will move, and then long castling will be coming, and white is completely winning. Actually, for those of you who doesn't know or who don't know, this sign means it's a decisive advantage. And if we reverse it like minus plus, it's like decisive advantage for black. So okay, how about then bishop d7? Probably bishop d7 maybe makes more sense than knight bd7, because you want to exchange these two pieces, and then knight bd7, which is interesting. But after bishop d7, again it doesn't work because of e5. The knight is under fire, and now in this position, sadly enough, you cannot go knight g4. Why can't you go knight g4? Because of this idea, queen takes. I mean, the bishop is not protecting, it's under the pen. So after e5, say for example d takes, and now instead of going back, which is not chess actually, to move your pieces back, say for example knight h7. Now after knight h7, you simply develop normally, like knight f3, supporting the pawn, and after castling now, the last move, if you can find it out, then you're good to go, like with this line. Why to play? Try to find it out. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel in order to get our new videos in this series. I do believe this series is very important and very strong one, and we already made another one talking about the ratio opening, one knight f3. You can check it out. g4 now, it's simply winning because this knight cannot go here, cannot go there, cannot go here, cannot go there. I mean, and white is going to be a piece up. Yes, there is some compensation, but it's not enough at all. So now let's go to the right idea. Let's say our opponent studied theory kind of very well and knew this idea of knight f d7. After knight f d7, black has a positional threat, which is a6 b5. I don't want to give my bishop easily here, or I don't want to allow b5. So I will start with this idea, which is a4. Very thematic one, very typical one. And now, black has two choices. One is bad, and another one is bad again. But but it's maybe less bad, you know? So after a4, the best move here for black is to go knight a6. But say, for example, he castled. We simply prepare the e5 push. Listen, if we manage to go e5 without any problems, we are winning. As simple as. So after knight f3, you go a6 attacking the bishop. We move our bishop away. Prophylactic move actually here because e4 might be attacked very soon. Knight f6 we castle. And now after rook e8, we go h3. h3 prophylactic move against knight g4, against bishop g4, etc. And now after knight bd7, improving the knight, I go because now e5 is a threat, right? I mean, or at least it's becoming possible, yeah? Though I will prepare, I'm not in a hurry, I'll go rook e1. After rook e1, now e5 is a serious move. The most played move here for black to stop e5 is queen c7. But after queen c7, now very interesting super move. It's not easy to find, but after you know it, it's easy to remember, which is this idea of bishop c4. This is a brilliant move. Why? Because we support the d5 pawn, we improve the bishop, and we open the line for the queen. So after, say, for example, king h8, after we go e5, it seems that e5 is a bad move. But after d takes e5, which is practically the only move for white or for black here to survive the game, or at least trying, now d6 is very strong. Thanks to bishop c4 opening this line, d6 is possible now. The queen is attacked, f takes e5 is coming, probably knight g5, the bishop is monster, ideas like knight d5 as well after f takes e5 is coming, and white is completely winning. Great. So what's left? What's interesting actually about these lines, you don't even need to see games. You don't even need to know how to continue in the middle game. There's no middle game. I mean, you play the opening right, you are winning. Very interesting. And maybe later on we will talk about how to convert advantages. So after knight fd7, a4, knight a6 black plays here. And the idea of knight a6 is interesting, though not useful in this practical or in this particular position. After knight a6, the idea is knight b4, trying to make use of this weak square. And here I need to say something. It's okay to have weak squares. It's okay to allow your opponent to sit there. But make sure these ideas won't be effective. And this is actually the point here. After knight a6, knight f3, you go knight b4. Yeah, this is actually a very great piece. But is it doing anything? Is it effective? The efficiency of this knight here is 0. Why? Because it's not cooperating with the rest of the pieces. It's just a very nice piece, just like that. You can take selfies with it, etc., but not depending or doing something with that as black. So here castling, you go a6. Actually, you can move your bishop back. It's possible. But according to Kasparov, he played this very nice idea, bishop takes d7. And after bishop takes d7, now, listen, because this is a very nice strategical idea. Whenever you give your bishop for one of your opponent's knights, put your pawns on the same color as that bishop. Because I am giving up, yes, I am giving up my light squares bishop, right? Then I do have some feeling, or I do have some weaknesses in the light squares, because my light squared bishop is not there and my opponent's light squared bishop is there. That's why here f5 is strategically, tactically, practically very strong. So after f5 in this position, black simply castled, and now bishop g5, attacking the queen, provoking some sort of f6. And this is actually a game between Kasparov and John Nunn, and you don't know, you don't have to know much. I mean, it's a very short game, and Kasparov win that game very shortly. Like after f6, this square is very bad. This bishop now is this square is very weak. This bishop is very bad. Just bishop f4, and now John Nunn was about 2600 rated player. G takes f5 played, but then bishop takes d6. Bishop takes a4, trying to attack the queen and the bishop in the meantime. But after these exchanges, actually, the king is very weak and the bishop is very bad. Kasparov continued the game with knight h4, threatening knight takes f5, f takes e4, knight f5, attacking the queen, queen d7, knight takes e4, attacking the pawn one more time, and after king h8, knight takes e5. I do believe probably here John Nunn just resigned the game. because the queen is under fire as the great knight, the selfie knight, the knight that you want or you want to take selfies with, is now just disappeared off the board. And knight e6 probably is coming, another weak square. This is very practical, very interesting ideas against the Benoni. And that's why actually it's, I don't want to say rarely, but you won't face the Benoni that much if you go knight c3. If you go knight f3, no, it's a decent opening and it's actually dangerous. And I recommend you to play c5 here in this position against knight f3. Very serious opening. But against knight c3, no, c5 is not great. And black is facing very tough decisions. And this idea of d5, e4, f4, bishop b5, too risky, too dangerous. This is actually for the Benoni. I don't want to make it complicated. It's as simple as you can see it. And make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like the video. So whenever we talked about the next stuff, probably we will talk about next the King's Indians. For example, after d4, c4, probably g6, King's Indian, Grunfeld, etc. will be in our next coverage. Again, thank you for watching. I hope this is useful, and I hope this will improve your chess understanding, which ultimately will improve your rating, which is what we all seek in terms of chess player. But most likely your chess understanding. If your chess understanding is improved, then you you feel happy while playing. In the meantime, you can score points when you know what you are doing. It's not out of luck or out of tactical idea. No, I know what I am doing from A to Z. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Have a nice one. Probably you are here because you have some fears or doubts how to play against this Benko, and it's very annoying gambit, we have to say. But after this video, you will wish you will face it every single game. Why? Let's tackle it. But before we do that, I will remind you with two things. The first of all, it's a series, so Mastering the Queen's Gambit. And this is episode 6, so we have 5 videos. We talked about d4, d5, c4, e6 in part 1, in part 2 c6, and part 3 dc. And then we moved on to talk about knight f6 stuff, and after like e6 we talked about knight c3, Nimzo Indian, and we talked about the Benoni. And today we will talk about the Benko Gambit. So subscribe and don't forget to watch this series because it's very, very, very practical, and it doesn't depend on memorization at all. Second, it's actually mentioned, or it's actually everything you can see here. It's there on Leech's study, and the link will be in the description. So you can, whenever you would like to, you can repeat it whenever you would like. So let's get into action. After c5, we go d5. We don't go e3, knight f3. These are kind of like coward decisions. Like, okay, I will go d5, no problem. You go b5, and no, very practical choice. By the way, for those of you who doesn't know the Benko Gambit, the Benko Gambit normally, or the Benko Gambit players normally, wish you takes, he takes b5, and this is actually psychological. Our response will be a psychological weapon against our opponent. Will be psychologically annoyed. So, and after c takes b5, it's gambit because it sacrifices a pawn, and after a6 he wished, please take the pawn, and you take the pawn, and now they are very happy. Why? Because you entered their territory, and now you have to be super accurate, not to win, super accurate, not actually to lose. Computer says yes after this main line. Say e4, bishop takes f1, king takes f1, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, g3, castling, and knight bd7, and rook e1, queen a5. Computer says it's maybe +1 or something for white, but actually, when you look at this position, if you forget a move, if you are not very, very, very well accurate and prepared, one single mistake and you're losing. I mean, the other rook will be coming. Every single piece for black is developed, is very well developed, and black is very super active. So why do I have to do this? And why do I need to memorize? I do believe if you would like to play this position, you need to memorize maybe even more 6, 7, 8 moves, and no plan here. I cannot give you plans. I can give you moves. Like you have to play exactly h3, and then you have to play exactly rook e2. If you miss, you're losing. That's why after b5, we said to we will say to our opponent, we are sorry, but your invitation is not accepted. I'll go queen c2. And why I give it a double exclamation mark? Because it's Very, very practical. A way of many theoretical, and not only theoretical, a way of the theme that black is prepared himself to play. So we go queen c2. We wanted to play e4. And the other idea of queen c2 is we still did not move our knight yet. What does that mean? That means whenever our opponent take, or we might take, then we secure the c4 square for our knight. We go normally knight d2, knight c4, or knight a3, knight c4. Another idea with the queen c2 is we wanted to go e4. And if our opponent is lazy, we'll go f4, e5. Very, very like annoying, strategical, practical choice. After queen c2, black has three choices actually. Three choices. Either to not to do anything with d6, which is probably going to transpose. Or there are two choices. First of all, and this is probably the main line, d takes c4, and the other one is b4. Let's start with the b4. If b4 in this position, we simply go e4. Thanks, we do have a great center now. And then black will continue with his thematic improvement, d6, g6, bishop g7, and now f4. I don't want to say you need not to know anything after this, but actually now your plan is clear. Your plan is to play knight f3 and to prepare yourself for e5. This is all you need to know in this position. We will continue for some moves, but just to give you more ideas. But having this information in mind, you can completely play this position and play a game of chess where you can fight for the advantage. By the way, ideas like b3, bishop b2 is always there. So after f4, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, we go bishop d3, improving the bishop. Why bishop d3? Because black's idea, actually, not black's idea, this is the only idea black can do, is e6. Why e6? Because I wanted to go e5 and he cannot prevent e5 in this position. That's why he tried to weaken d5 square with e6. Now we go h3, stop any sort of knight g4 or bishop g4 ideas. And if e d5, c d5, again, this is not something to memorize. This is just something to give you more information, yeah, how to tackle this position. After c d5, rook e8, here why is bishop d3 is played, not for example bishop e2, yeah, to support the e4 pawn. And now again, as we said, this knight belongs to the c4 square, knight bd2, and after knight bd7 we go knight c4, attacking on d6, having the ideas of e5 even for more. And if knight b6 now, it's completely not forced, you can play many moves in this position, but this is very, very interesting sacrifice, e5. After d takes c5, now we take with the pawn, we sacrifice the d5 pawn, but with great compensation. Knight d6 attacking the rook, attacking on f7, our rook is very active, he moved the rook away, and then I am attacking the queen in the same time, like queen c7, rook a e1, like our opponent is coming to play a very active game of chess against us, and we should be defending, but now he is defending, and we are the one who is playing the active and attacking chess. And this is actually something computer don't or doesn't tell you about. This is computer doesn't understand even. What do you mean by psychology? But whenever you like reversed or turn the table around psychologically by choosing the right moves and the right opening approach, this is great for your game. After rook a to e1, bishop takes e5, I just analyzed because something that you need to be aware of. But now actually knight takes e5, queen d6, knight f7. This is something just to complete the story, and rook takes f7, and this is actually completely winning for white. It's not a forced line, you don't need to know anything. After this f4, your idea is to play knight f3 followed by e5. You can gambit that line, you can double check it with the Leech's study as we mentioned, but that's enough to know. So that's actually what you need to know with b4. And now let's go for b takes c4. And after b takes c4, d5 pawn is under fire, so we simply go e4, supporting the line, and black will continue, like say, okay, what? I mean, I have the open b file, I'll go d6, g6, bishop g7, castling, and everything is fine. I take bishop takes c4, he goes g6, I go knight f3, bishop g7, and now castling. Actually, you can start with h3, which I do believe it's kind of maybe better, but it's fine. It's going to be a transposition. Why I do like h3? Because, you know, I like to minimize my opponent's choices. And after h3, for example, this bishop now is not happy. And this is actually a problem normally black doesn't face when he plays the Benko, because it exchanges right away. So after h3, how this bishop can improve? The only possible way is to go bishop a6. And now, very interesting move. As we mentioned, one of the advantages of queen c2 is the delayed knight b1 improvement. Now, knight bd2 is possible to go and support the bishop and to go to the c4 square, but instead knight a3 is even better. Why it's better? Because we keep this diagonal open. And after bishop takes c4, we simply go back or take back with knight takes c4, knight bd7, and now we improve the bishop g5. Why bishop g5? We build pressure against this spot on e7. Knight b6 trying to exchange, no worries. I can exchange, it's fine. Knight takes c4, knight takes c4, and now my life is easy. My knight here is very, very strong knight. I have ideas like b6. I have ideas like b4 even. For example, a line and the game actually went with knight d7. Though this move is very dangerous, black has to calculate knight takes d6. I do believe there is f7 maybe or f6 here and then e takes d6, but that shows how accurate black should be. And after knight d7, rook b1, knight b6. Black is trying to exchange minor pieces here in this position. In one game that we will going to see later for Krasenko went on to play b3 in this position, but actually the computer recommendation, and I don't want to say our recommendation, but you do have the two choices after either b3, and whenever he takes, you take back, and then you have the open file, and we will see the game and how the game actually continued. Or you could go with b4, and after knight takes c4, queen takes c4, and after c takes b4, we go queen takes b4. Actually, this position is like, it is slightly better for white, but it's kind of a slight. Here, let's talk about advantages. The advantages in chess, it's either to be a long-term advantage or a short-term one. The short-term advantages, like when the position is too dynamical and you're attacking my king, I am attacking my king, I am +1, but I made a mistake, then my opponent is -1, etc., etc. Yeah? This is actually a dynamic advantage, and it's something you cannot depend on. But the long-term advantage is something different. For example, whenever you have a risk-free game, you cannot lose this game. You have the open file, you have the pressure, you have the easy play. Yes, it's slight, but it's permanent. And sometimes slight but permanent is better than +1, but maybe it's just temporary because it requires a computer accuracy. Yeah, I hope you get this way of thinking. So after queen b7, you do have the b file, you do have the c file. The pressure on e7 needs to be solved, and I do believe white has a better chance in this game. Out of the Benko, where black was heading for a very active attacking chess, now he needs to suffer for this ending, and he needs to defend maybe for the next 10 or 15 moves. So that's for b takes c4, which is actually the main line. And the other line is not to decide and go for d6. Actually, when you go for d6, you said, okay, I don't want to decide now. I don't want to decide either, like e4. And now maybe I wanted to decide. Maybe I can now take the pawn because now my bishop is supporting. And for example, g6 I can take, because if you go a6 in this position, I don't want to take and let you take on f1 and I move my king. No, I can simply improve my knight. Like whenever you take, I take back, and that's very improved version of the Benko. And even like after bishop takes b5, you can improve the knight, you can castle, and you can bring your rook to the game and go with e5. Yeah, this is actually an idea. Or if you don't like to do that, then you can keep the pawn and improve, and you're doing great. So if after e4, if bc, then this is a transposition, and if b4, it's another transposition, and black is doing great. Now let's see two games. First game for the main line. Krasenko is playing white against Volodin. Volodin's 2500, Krasenko 2600. d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5 or c5, d5, d6, c4. Okay, it's fine. b5, queen c2, g6. See, like started with this move order. It's fine. We go e4. And after b takes c4, not queen takes, it's bishop takes c4. Improve, not improve piece. Bishop g7, we castled. He castled as well. And remember now our move is h3. Why? This bishop cannot improve. Bishop a6 attacking, and now Krasenko found the best move, knight a3. Why knight a3, not knight d2? To keep the diagonal open. Great. Bishop takes c4, knight takes c4, and after knight bd7, we simply go bishop g5. Why bishop g5? We build pressure against the e7 pawn, so this knight cannot move freely, and if this knight did not move, then this bishop cannot be improved. So knight b6, knight fd2, and after knight takes, knight d7, and rook b1. Rook b1 is a useful move. Either we go b3 and then b takes c4 after knight b6, or we go b4 in one shot. After knight b6, we recommend, or we showed this idea of b4 earlier, but now we will see the idea of b3. Queen d7, f4. Why f4? We will see. Knight takes c4, b takes c4, and after rook a b8. Now actually it's a very interesting strategy played by Caro-Kann, f5. Seems that I don't care about dark squares. You can take the dark squares, but my bishop can cover the dark squares, yeah? My bishop can cover this diagonal, it's completely fine. But who can cover the light squares for you, my dear opponent? I am just controlling now the light squares with my pawns. And after f5, bishop e5 is actually played. Bishop h6, bishop g7, takes. And now rook b3. And that's a very interesting move. Either you take, and then I take with the queen and I have the open file. Or maybe I can slide my rook to the f file, and then ideas like f takes g6 might be super strong. Your king actually might be more exposed, as I can see now with queen b2 is a threat, and your rook will be taken. So rook takes b3, queen takes b3, thanks for the only open file. Here, black is trying to do something with the queen c7, queen a5. And now rook b1, queen a5 again, and queen c2. I controlled the file with the rook, and my queen is just defending the key squares. Rook c8, king f2, improving the king. This is actually a high quality game with, or by Caro-Kann. Queen a3, rook b7, attacking on e7, just defending. And again, we need, I'm just amazed by this concept. Like whenever your opponent is playing the Benko, again, he was looking for a crazy active game of chess and where everything is attacking everything, but all of a sudden he is defending this sort of endings. Like, very nice. Okay, rook b3 attacking the queen, king e2, king d3, now the rook is free to go as the queen is protected. Queen d7, king e3, king f7, king f2. The journey of the king was not successful, but okay, I can maneuver here and there, and then the king on h2, and then queen f4, heading for queen h6, rook g7, a4 improving, a5 improving, and now queen h6 attacking. And after rook g7, no, very great move. a6, wow, what a move. What a move a6 is. I wanted to improve my rook, take the pawn, etc, etc. And if you take here, now this is the idea. F takes g6, the only move is probably h takes g6, and now I might go for ideas like rook b8, and then queen h8, and the mating ideas will be coming. Oi, 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 oi. And actually, you don't have time for your queen to maybe march my king or reach my king. Maybe there is this idea. I'm not completely sure. And then check and some perpetual maybe. So maybe we need to go queen h8 first or something like queen h8, queen, or maybe queen h8, queen here. If, for example, queen a1. Many ideas, many choices. Okay, that's why after a6 the pawn is not taken. G takes f5 first, but then check, king g8, and queen takes f5. And here in this position, black just resigned the game. Again, queen takes a6, there is rook b8 check, and then after that there is probably, no, check first is much better, and then if rook f7, maybe check from here, rook b8 probably is coming. I mean, many mating ideas. You can check it out with the Lichess study, but white is doing more than great, and in all choices, white has a free risk advantage, which is great. Let's see, the last game it's between Mamedyarov and Caruana. d4, knight f6, c4, c5, d5, and after b5 we simply go queen c2. After queen c2, b4, this is another line which is played. We go simply e4 and f4. Our idea is to go e5, and this is actually all you need to know in this position. And see how Mamedyarov played. Now, again, just a reminder, like the bishop has to go here or there. d3 exactly, because after e6 take rook e8, later on, the e4 pawn will be supported. Bishop g4, I don't care, knight bd2. You castled, I castled as well. You go a5, h3. Take, and now e5 is coming. And my opponent, my dear opponent, you are late with playing e6 now, probably. So after knight fd7, I am preparing for e5, so how? I need my rook to be here. So bishop d2. You go a4, threatening maybe a3, some sort of pen. No, I'm not interested. Rook a to e1, and now e5 is a super move. Caruana tried e6. I mean, he's not ready for the queenside development. After e6, queen c1 is played by Mamedyanov. E takes, and now e takes or c takes. Exactly, c takes. Why? Because we want to play e5. Here Caruana played knight b6, thought that okay, e5 is not possible, but e5 actually is played, and e5 is actually possible. If you take, probably bishop b4 is super strong. That's why rook a7 is played by Caruana, but Mamedyanov is merciless and he played e6, very strong move. Sometimes e7 wins the game directly, and other times f5 is coming. Knight takes d5, e takes f7 check, king h8, and knight g5. And after knight g5, probably knight e6 is a threat, forking these two guys. So queen f6 away of the threat, but now king h1 away of any annoying checks. Knight d7, f5, open things up against this king. You take on b2, trying to exchange queens whenever you are attacking, whenever you have a better king, whenever your opponent has a bad king. Don't ever, never exchange queens. So queen d1. Knight e5, attacking the bishop, but now with some calculations, actually, Mamedyanov found or reached the conclusion that it's completely winning. And after knight takes h3, just knight takes h7, and queen is coming. Knight takes e1. Caruana was greedy enough in this game and keep taking material, but actually it backfires, as after queen h5, you cannot avoid the checkmate either from here or from there. Queen d2 is played, hoping for ideas like queen h6 to defend, but actually in vain, as knight g5 cut off this diagonal, and queen h7 is coming, and it's completely winning for white. So this is our recommendation against the Benko Gambit. Let me know in the comments what do you think about our choice, and let me know in the comments actually what else you want to see next, because we still have the King's Indian, we do have the Grunfeld, and we do have actually I'm planning to do a video about the rare replies. So let me know in the comments what opening you wanted to see next, so we will start our preparation for your mastering of the Queen's Gambit declined. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out the whole series. It's very practical, very useful, and I do believe this is your way to 20 or 200 ELO rating very soon. Thanks for watching again. See you soon. Have a nice one. After this video, you will wish to face King's Indian every single round. The King's Indian is one of the lions why I delayed d4 in my repertoire, as I was a King's Indian player and I knew how dynamic kings or dynamical defense it is. Up till nowadays, it's very annoying for white to face King's Indian because it's very dynamic and not easy to face actually, or to find ideas, and you cannot refute it. But our strategy and our opening's choice will be based on understanding completely, and will deprive black of any dynamical play. It's going to be mostly static positions where white will have a very slight advantage. This is actually part 7 of Mastering the Queen's Gambit series here on YouTube on our channel. More than 50% of the viewers are not subscribed, maybe even more. So please do subscribe to the channel, so you help me continue, you help me improve and add more and more content to this channel, which is, I do believe, going to be useful for you. So today in this episode, I will start differently. I will start talking about 3 pawn structures I want you to understand. One of the structures that we will most likely reach, and this is actually more than 40% of your games will be in this structure. This is very interesting one. You do have the pressure against d6 pawn, while black having no counterplay at all. This is very important structure in our study today. And whenever you reach this structure, you are completely fine. You're not winning, but you do have more than a slight advantage, and you are the only one who can fight for winning, while the King's Indian player will be super annoyed, as he was looking for a game to fight and to create chances and to create like a chaos in the board, but he found himself or herself defending a very like dry position. So this is the first pawn structure. The second pawn structure, which is probably related, For example, here, instead of allowing d takes c5 or not d takes c5, instead of taking e takes d4, we will never take. Instead of e takes d4, black sometimes goes e4. So after e4, always remember this idea and have it in mind. g4. A very creative move. Want to kick this knight away, and sometimes we do have a knight here, so we can go knight g3 and attack on e4 as well. So this is our second structure. The third structure, sometimes we reach this position, and now very important move for white, which is h4. Brilliant move. Why is it a brilliant move? Because usually in the King's Indian, black wants to go f5, f4, g5, h5, g4, etc. Like pawn storm on the king side. So we go h4. Now black has two choices. First of all, h5 is out of the equation, because after, say for example, f5 and I take, if you take with a piece, then e4 square will be very, very, very weak and will be very great for our knights. And if you take with a pawn, then your h5 pawn will be taken most likely, because normally we have a bishop on g2, so bishop f3 and the pawn will be taken, the queen on d1 as well. And the g5 square is super weak. So if you go h6, we go h5, and after g5 we go very creative move g4. Why g4? Normally there is a bishop here, so it's going to be a very, very bad bishop, and we do have a way to make use of the f5 square, which is very weak, while, I mean by knights, for example, like knight e3, knight g3 and jump to f5, while black cannot use the e6 and the g6 square to attack on f4. And if after h4 black went a5 anyway, we go h5, and after, say for example, any waiting move, I take, he takes, or she takes, then we do have actually access for the g5 square forever, like either bishop g5 or knight g5, it doesn't matter. And normally when we go h4, normally we do have a rook here, so it's going to be super annoying to this king. Now let's get into the business. Actually, it was a challenge for me. Like, what can I recommend for you? A way of theory, because this is a practical repertoire for white. What can I suggest? I thought about first about the Samish attack, like for example f3, and when you go d6, e4, bishop g7, and knight c3. But then after castling and whatever you play, here you are in the black's hand, and this is actually a very nowadays theoretical opening. Like c5 is there, e5 is there, ideas like knight c6, rook b8, a6, b5 are there, so that doesn't work. So let's try something else. I tried knight c3, and after bishop g7, knight f3, castling e3. By the way, I forgot again. All what we talk about is mentioned on a study or in a study on Lichess, and the link in the description. So wherever or whenever you would like to repeat, review, you can watch this video again, and you can download the study on Lichess. So after e3, there's d6, bishop e2. My idea was kind of creative. Like I wanted after bishop to e2 to play a reverse King's Indian attack, like e5, bishop b2, rook e8, queen c2, etc., c6, h3 waiting, but actually it was not great, and I did not find a way to simplify things for you. So in order to simplify things for you, I came up with this. I don't want to say I came up with this idea, but I found this idea very interesting one. It's played before by too many top grandmasters, by Magnus Carlsen, but the point of g3 is after bishop g7, first of all, very important. This is going to be introduction for our next episode, the Grunfeld. Like this g3 is great against the Grunfeld, so this is actually for another topic, but this is very important for the next episode. So after g3, bishop g7, we go bishop g2, black castled or played d6, it's fine. We go knight c3, now there is no longer d5. So after d6, we will not go for the theoretical line, knight f3. Probably the best move, probably, I'm not sure. Here we go, e3. Very nice idea. Now after e3, black has three choices or two. The first one with e5 structures, the second one with c5 structures, and the first one e5 comes with two options, either with knight c6 or with knight bd7. The most played one is with knight bd7, and this is the one that we will start it with. Knight bd7, c6, e5, okay? So let's start with c6. It's actually makes sense to limit the bishop along this diagonal. So after c6, we simply improve our knight, knight ge2. And after knight ge2, black plays e5. The idea now of black is hoping that you will not understand the position and you will take. And this is actually a mistake. Why? Because after d takes e5, d takes e5, first of all, never ever release any tension in your life if you don't have a great follow-up. As they said, always, to take is a mistake, yeah? So, after d takes e5, d takes e5, now this knight is super sad. You cannot go here, you cannot go here. And this knight again is super sad. You cannot go here, you cannot go here. This bishop is not happy either. And black actually practically better. That's why after e5 we simply castle short, keeping the diagonal open for the bishop and kind of waiting. It's actually a very nice waiting game is going to happen. Now knight bd7, because this bishop has no great square, like bishop g4 always, bishop f5 always runs to ideas like, for example, e4, bishop g4 always h3, bishop e6 always d5. So always there's something against this bishop, so knight bd7 is played. After knight bd7, we go now queen c2. Improve the queen and kind of waiting, and b3 actually is coming for our bishop. So after queen c2, now black but the best move for black is to continue the improving waiting game, playing rook e8, improving the rook. Why? First of all, e4 is no longer, I mean, it's not available. I do have once, twice, thrice attacking here, while you only have a knight to support. So if e takes d4, always remember, if e takes d4, I go what? Knight takes d4. Remember the structure that we talked about? We are there. We stop the d5 push by 1, 2, 3, probably 4 if it requires, which is not, if it's required. So other than that, I go b3, I go bishop b2, and black has only one active plan. Only one active plan, which is to play knight c5. We don't go b4. No, we don't want to create weaknesses there. We go b3. And after rook e8, we go bishop b2. You go queen e7, we bring our rook to the game. Rook a to d1. And the only active actually plan for black is to go knight c4. He doesn't have other than that. After knight ce4, I simply improve the rook first. Again, waiting, improving game. a5 is one of the ideas that might happen. So black thought, okay, I will either now or before, yeah, to secure like the knight on c5 or out of b4 ideas. So after a5, I take, you take, and I push the knight away. Exchange one piece because we are heading and we want to reach the endings that we started with. Yeah, having that structure in mind will help you in a great way. Knight c5 back. Now I go e4. Why? Because d5 might be an idea. No, you are not allowed to do that, my opponent. So after e5, queen c7, away with the rook, and after queen c7, now you can go bishop c3, you can, okay, actually our idea is to exchange pieces. This is only thing you need to understand. Other than that, it's just about showing examples, yeah, not about memorization. For example, bishop c3 is one of the ideas. You can wait, and now knight e2, exchange the bishops. Why? Because normally, guys, this is very important what I'm going to say. Normally, if your opponent has a weak pawn structure or a weak pawn, one of the strategies is to exchange minor pieces, because minor pieces are great in defense first, second in creating counterplay. So if we manage to exchange the minor pieces, then black will suffer a lot out of the d6 pawn. So after knight e2, rook a d8, for example, takes, and now you can go h4. It's not necessary. It's just, I give you just ideas like check and rook d2. Our plan is easy. The rook is coming, attack on d6. Black is under a huge pressure and he is out of active plans. And this is actually why he chose to play the King's Indian, to play active chess, to attack, to sacrifice, to create and play a very nice game of chess. But all of a sudden, he is here just trying to waiting passively, which is something a King's Indian player, as I was a King's Indian player, is very, very, very tough. Okay, but wait a second. My opponent might not be helpful and might not take on d4. That's what we was talking about, or what we were talking about. After queen c2, for example, rook e8, he is waiting. We are improving as well. And again, e4 is not available. We do have once, twice, thrice, while our opponent has only twice, 2 pieces. So queen e7. And now after queen e7, we will play bishop to a3. Our plan is to play rook a d1 and take on e5, then the d6 pawn will be taken. So we are kind of pressuring our opponent, forcing him to exchange on d4, seeking and hitting our structure that we talked about earlier. So after bishop a3, how about e4? Because now it seems to be possible. Remember, e4 ideas should be met by what? If you are focused in the beginning of the lecture or video, then you will remember this great idea, g4. Double exclamation mark. Now after g4, 2 moves. If you take with the knight, then it's simply queen takes e4, and the weakness here is actually great. If you take with the queen, the knight takes e4, and the pawn is attacked too many times, and it's actually completely winning for white. By the way, this sign, plus minus, means it's a decisive advantage for white, +2 and up. So if knight d5, it's played by one of the games, I do believe, so we simply go h3. This knight under fire, this knight as well, and if ideas like this, then simply queen f4, and again white is completely winning. So remember, e4, there is always g4. What's the threat? g5 and grab the pawn. h6 is available? No. Why? Because as we mentioned earlier, maybe h4 is an idea, but I don't trust, as after knight takes g4, maybe there's queen takes h4, but we simply go knight g3. And this pawn cannot be protected once, twice, thrice, and 4 times by the bishop, while you have only 3 pieces to defend. So let's go back, and after bishop a3, black kind of forced to take e takes d4, and now we take back knight takes d4. You go knight c5, this bishop, thank you, you did the job. Let's get back to exchange from here. So now black probably will think that before is a threat. It might be at some moment, yeah? So keep it in mind. That's why a5, trying to stabilize the knight here on c5. We simply go h3. And again, the only active plan for black is knight fe4. Always remember, you do have this waiting, active waiting moves. I can wait forever. I can play very nice moves forever. So after you go to e4, I simply play rook a d1, knight takes, bishop takes, knight e4, I go back. I have all the time in the world. After bishop b2, bishop d7, and now again, what's our idea? Exchange minor pieces. How to do that? Move away the knight, like knight e2. Let's exchange the bishops. Actually, it's forced, like f6, no one will play f6. This is a very bad positional move. Bishop takes b2, queen takes b2, and now, for example, h5. We improve the rook, trying to double, and the knight actually is under fire. Bishop f5. Now, the best move in the position, and the computer says bishop takes e4, but as our repertoire, it's practical and it's not completely depending on the computer. Here you can go bishop takes e4 and you're completely fine, but you can play knight c3 simply. And after knight c3, knight c3, queen c3, again and again the same structure. You're coming with the rook, with the queen, and black has to be passively defending the d6 pawn. So after bishop f5, we could go like knight c3, and we could take on e4. Like one example very quickly, take knight c3 attacking the bishop, attacking here, just h4, and queen d2 attacking, rook d1 attacking, queen e5 trying like to have some like tricks, like if I take, then take, okay, fine, I can defend against that. Like for example, king h2, move the knight away, and then again a threat here, the knight is, or the bishop is under fire, and this position is a clear advantage for white, and again black has no counterplay whatsoever. So this is actually what you will face the most. So I hope you get it. I hope you like it so far. Now let's discuss other ideas. The other ideas in this position actually at the beginning are 2. Either c5, but before we go to c5, let's have a look for this idea of knight c6. After knight c6, again, we stick to what we talked about, knight ge2 and e5. Anything does not make any sense. So after e5, we simply castle. After castling, rook e8 might happen. Probably Nice waiting move. And now we go h3. e4. Question for you. Not question. Okay, wait a second. Like e4 is not a great move. Why it's not a great move? We could go g4, knight g3. Probably available. Probably is there. But because now this bishop is alive, maybe ideas like h5 is annoying. Maybe, huh? But here, there's a very interesting idea by the computer. The idea is f3. What? f3, yeah. Attacking on e4. Probably black has to take. And now we take back with the rook. Have you ever seen something like this? I doubt. But this seems weird, yeah? This is actually what I thought at the beginning. But then, after rook takes f3, it says, for example, black plays h5. Because ideas like bishop f5, some g4 ideas is there. So, for example, h5 is played. And now, very interesting move. Queen f1. And this position is a clear advantage for white. Black has no active way to play. We simply go bishop d2. Our rook here is completely stable. You cannot go bishop g4. You cannot go knight e5. You cannot go knight d4. You can do nothing. The pressure along the f file is super annoying. The pressure along the this diagonal is super annoying. And one of the ideas actually for us is to bring the other rook to the game, like probably queen f2 and rook f1, and just sacrifice and win the game. As simple as this. Ooh. So this idea, it's recommended to remember it. I do believe you will remember it, as it's a very unique idea and it's just one idea, yeah, in this position. So how about e takes d4 now? What can we do? As this knight now is here, actually don't mix things up, yeah? This structure now is not great for us. First of all, ideas like knight e4 is there, like attacking the queen and the knight as well. But this position is not great for us. I mean, it's normal position, like away of knight e4. I don't have a clear way for white to continue, yeah? So normally we take e takes d4. But what's our plan? Our plan is simple. Now, what can black do? For example, bishop g4 or bishop f5. We go g4 away, and then simply we go bishop g5, improving the bishop, pinning the knight. After h6, bishop h4, you go rook b8, for example, we bring the rook to the game. And this is again a clear advantage for white. Why? Because black has no active play. As they said, black has no pawn play, no pawn breaks. Without pawn breaks, you can do no problems for me. And I have great control over the center. e5 square is under control, d5 square is under control, d4 square is under control, and e4 square is under control as well. You cannot go knight e4, you cannot go bishop f5. You're kind of squeezed in this position. What can I do as white? I will go b3, I can go queen d2, bring the other rook to the game, and play a useful waiting moves, while actually black is suffering to find an active plan. And again, I will repeat this over and over again because it's very important. The King's Indian players, guys, we are not computers. We are human beings. We have a psychology, yeah? Our opponent, when he picked the King's Indian attack, he was looking for a dynamical game of chess. He was looking for sacrifices based on some Kasparov's games, Fischer's games, etc. and etc. But all of a sudden, he is in this position. He needs to be waiting passively, which is kind of a mental torture for him. So that's actually of knight c6. Lastly, and at the end of our lecture, we will talk about c5. It's kind of rare. I don't believe your opponent will do this. But now I have a nice recommendation. Actually, the computer at the first doesn't really like our choice, but doesn't hate it either, yeah? We go in this position, d5. I tried knight ge2, but I did not like it, as there are ideas like knight c6 castling, takes e5, and I feel like black is happy here, yeah? Attacking the center and doing some dynamical play. Bishop g4 is coming. No. I cannot recommend this stuff for you. Like, if you miss one move, then you might be out of service, yeah? So not to be out of service, here we go d5. And after d5, black has two ideas. Either to go for Benoni structures with e6 and e takes d5, or to go with e5 right away. If e5 right away, we simply go e4, and now the only active plan for black, and it's actually not the only, it's the thematic plan for black, is to go f5, right? So how to do that? Most likely knight e8, most like reasonable move. And have we seen this structure before? Yes. So what's the move? h4, great. And now if h6, h5, I'm threatening h takes g6 followed by bishop takes h6. So you have to go g5, and I go simply g4. f3 to be followed, and then maybe knight h3, knight f2. This is a good square for the knight. Or knight e2, knight g3. You can simply castle and play with the queen side, a3, b4. This bishop now and in the future will be just crying, doing nothing. Yeah? Okay. What about f5 right away? Again, we go h5, and if you go knight f6, we take, you take, and we talked about how this square is super weak. We go knight f3, and knight to g5 is coming at any moment. So after c5, d5, again, e5 is not a great move, so e6 has to be played. And now we play knight g2, and maybe you might ask, what if e5? Again, we talked about structures, like knight e8, what to do? Again, h4. The only difference is that after h5, knight f6 takes, the square actually, it's not for the knight. We will be happy if the knight is here, but I mean, the bishop is enough. And this is a decisive advantage for white. White will go queen d2, castling long, bishop h6, take, and just checkmate, yeah? So, after e6, knight g2, the only actually right plan for black is to take e takes d5. And I hate this move actually, c takes d5. Why? Because this bishop now looks like in a very angry way to me. Like, what are you doing? Why you developed me here and closed the diagonal afterwards? And this knight actually is again angry for me. This knight wished to be here. So now we do have the idea of knight d2, knight c4. But on e2 you cannot do that. So after c takes d5, always remember not to take with the pawn. And we take with a knight. Knight takes d5, we take with the queen. And this bishop cannot move as he will lose the b7 pawn. So rook e8, a useful universal waiting move. We castle. Knight c6, knight f4. Now this position is very dangerous strategically for black. As black has a good development so far, but he has a permanent. The good development is something temporary. Anytime it will finish, it will disappear. But the weakness of d6 pawn and the weakness of d5 square is permanent, probably for 20 moves. For 30 moves, the position of the pawn structure will remain the same. So after knight c6, bishop e6 is an idea. Knight f4, we stopped that forever. And now in this position, the only actually plan for black is to play for b5. No, it's not easy. Try to be black in this position. It's not easy. And our idea as white is just to go rook b1 in the right moment, because always you need to watch out for bishop f5. And then improve the bishop. Or maybe another idea, which the computer shows actually, rook b8. We go queen d3. This is actually an idea I like. You cannot go b5, and if you go knight e5 attack, this is actually again temporary. I improve the queen. If black has done nothing, then thank you. I will improve the bishop, I will bring the rooks to the game, and we'll attack on d6. As simple as. I do have a clear picture in the mind. Any a6 will be met by a4. And if you go queen a5, again knight d5. Yes, you managed to play b5 and open the b file. I agree. That's right, but guess what's the computer best move in this position? You cannot guess. It's very unhuman chess, like queen d8. And after queen d8, we simply go rook b1. Ideas like b3, bishop b2, exchange bishops, and again, whenever you have better pawn structure, just exchange the minor pieces. We go bishop b2. At the end of the day, we will exchange these two bishops, and we do have only two pawn islands. Like this is the one, this is the first, this is the second. While our opponent has three pawn islands, 1, 2, 3. Not only that, a weak square in the center and a d6 weak pawn backward. So that's it for the King's Indian. Now actually I am the one, guys. When I create this this series, some of the ideas are new for me. For example, this is something new for me. And now I am kind of excited actually to try it in an actual chess game. Why? Because it seems not very well known, first of all. Second of all, it's strategically very easy for white to play, very annoying for black to play. And I felt happy for that. Let me know in the comments what do you think about our repertoire, our choice so far. And don't forget to check out our series, Mastering the Queen's Gambit Accepted. Before this series, we created the Mastering the Reti series as well. And we started actually a very interesting series, the 50 mistakes you should know. And we start by the first mistake, which is super important. And I do believe most of you will not know about that mistake, even if you are rated 2000 above or below. You do this mistake while you don't know. That's it for the King's Indian. I hope I managed to explain everything clearly, and I hope to see you soon. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and see you soon. Have a nice one. Hello everyone to a new episode of Mastering the Queen's Gambit Declined, in which we are going to cover the Grunfeld, and we do have a nice novelty. Before that, I will remind you of this series because we have done the Queen's Gambit Declined, we have talked about the Slavs, we have talked about DC4, Queen's Gambit Accepted, and then we moved to talked about the Nimzo Indian, Bishop to B4, and we talked about the Benoni, also early on the Benko after D5, B5. My choices were very, very practical. If you just watch the video, you will get 90 or maybe more % of what you're going to do. No need to repeat BGNs or no need to do whatever. Though the BGN is there in the description for the whole series. So I really advise you not to waste too much time studying opening and watch that series. It's very, very, very playable and very nice options for players around or below or even a bit after 2000s. So here, D4, Knight F6, C4, G6, G3. Because we are talking about the Grunfeld and we recommended this for the King's Indian. So it does not make any sense to recommend, for example, another options for the Grunfeld, because you might think that what if my opponent plays the King's Indian? For example, if my recommendation is this one, Queen B3, or say CD5, Knight D5, the main line, or maybe Bishop D2 if you would like to have more options, then again, what if my opponent plays the King's Indian? Then it's not about my G3 idea. Why G3 early on? Because I don't want to give you the chance to exchange the knights. What do I mean by that? There is a strategical rule in chess saying, whenever you do have space advantage, do not exchange pieces, and the other way around. So in the Grunfeld, after like Knight C3, D5, CD5, Knight D5, E4, white wanted, if there is a chance, for this knight not to exchange, because this center means I do have space advantage. That's why Knight C3 sometimes is not the best, and many of the players is playing here F3, and after D5 takes knight E4, and the knight has to go back, and the more pieces black has, the more crammed he or she will be. That's why after G6, G3, now if you wanted to go for D5, then whenever I take, you take back, which is going to be the main line or a transposition by any means, then we go Bishop G2 and we play early E4 without exchanging pieces. So you might ask, let's get this done. You might ask, what if Bishop G7, then it's Bishop G2, and now if black did not play the Grunfeld, then Knight C3 is coming and I will have a full control over the D5 square. That's why here in this position, black has to decide what to do after Bishop G7, Bishop G2, or early on whether he will play the Grunfeld or not. So D5 is going to happen and it's going to be a transposition. So after D5, we take pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, and now Bishop G2. By the way, Queen takes D5 is out of equation, as I can go Knight F3 and then I will win a very, very important tempo with Knight C3. So after C takes D5, Knight takes D5, Bishop G2, Bishop G7, very normal, has to be played, and now E4. And now in this position, black will play most likely knight b4. Otherwise, white is okay, and you need to know nothing. For example, if knight f6, knight c3 is more than enough, and then you continue your development and you have a center with no problem at all. Because black, when he played knight f6 back, he just closed the diagonal for the bishop. That's why here in this position you're not you're much better if knight f6. You don't need to know anything after that. But what if knight b6? Because knight b6 is much more active than knight f6. It comes with tempo and white or black is attacking. But now I'm not forced to protect passively. I will protect while improving. So I'll go knight e2. And after c5, trying to improve the bishop, trying to attack my center, I will go simply d5. And now if black does nothing, I will go knight c3, castling long, and then go e5. I mean, with bishop f4, we'll prepare e5. Sometimes with f4 even. So black cannot stand waiting, yeah? That's why sooner or later, ideas like e6 has to be played. Attacking on d5, hoping for something like d takes e6. So you will no longer have the two center pawns, and ideas like queen takes d1, followed by bishop takes e6, and black is completely fine or even better. That's why after e6, we go knight bc3, supporting the pawn, and castling. After pawn takes pawn, now, based on what we have talked about, you will take with the knight or with the pawn. See, I like when we make decisions in the opening based on our understanding. Yeah, I hope you're completely right. E takes d5. So the point is, again, with e takes d5, I have what's so-called space advantage. And when you have a space advantage, it's better not to exchange pieces. So after e takes d5, for example, rook e8 improving the rook, h3 stopping any ideas of bishop g4 with bishop takes c3 followed by bishop takes e2. Not at all. So knight 8 to d7, and now very interesting idea, which is actually d6. This is a very, very strong pawn, especially whenever you have all of your pieces. d6 for white or d3 with black is always a good move. Why? Because, I mean, you control very important squares. Knight b5 is coming with knight c7, knight e4 with bishop g5 ideas. You will be, I mean, black is really, really suffering. So after, for example, knight e5, knight b5, now knight c7 is a deadly threat. It's not easy actually to meet. And if you go, for example, a6 to stop knight b5, then simply knight e4. Knight e4, this knight cannot move. There's always knight takes c5. Ideas like bishop g5 is always in the air. This king actually is not that safe, as I can exchange bishops as well after, like bishop g5, queen d2, bishop h6. Also, I can simply support my d6 pawn with rook a d1, rook f d1. Again, there is a pressure on b7, so even if the knight moves, you cannot move the bishop away. You might lose a pawn. So it's a very, very tough position for black to even survive, not to play. So the most active move for black actually, and the most reliable one, which is knight b4. Why knight b4? Because he's again attacking on d4, and there's actually additional tactical idea, which is knight c2. It looks now protected, but unfortunately for us, we cannot go knight e2. We cannot improve while defending, because after knight e2, black is going to be very okay after bishop takes d4. Yes, we do have compensation, because after knight takes d4, queen takes d4, we might simply castle, for example, and we do have the maybe the dark squared bishop, though I'm not really sure about castling. Maybe you need to give this check first, because there's knight c2 ideas. So in order to avoid all of this, we will not go knight e2, and we simply will go d5. We will improve our pawn structure, and we will push not to lose the pawn. So after d5, c6 has to be played. Otherwise, if black did not play c6, for example, castling, simply a3, knight back, and then I improve my pieces. Knight e2, knight c3, bishop f4, bishop g5, castling, queen d2. You come up with your rooks to the open files, and black is really, really suffering. This knight actually is not well placed at all. That's why here in this position, black is trying to complicate matters and play c6, attacking on d5 first. Second, he wanted to keep this knight as long as possible. The point of c6 after a3, kicking the knight away. Again, if knight a6, black is completely suffering and white is completely fine. Knight e2, knight c3, castling, and white is doing great. That's why queen a5 has to be played. The point is, I cannot take the knight. There is queen takes a1. Fair enough. But we simply improve. Knight c3. And also attacking the pawn on d5. C takes d5. One of the ideas, if you take e takes d5, maybe ideas like bishop c3, knight d5 later on, I'm not sure. But as white, we can go bishop f4. renewing the threat of 8 takes b4, as now our rook is protected. Now black's idea was, okay, now I have the square for the knight, but we do have e takes d4 or e takes d5. Knight d4, now improving the knight. By the way, this is not going to work because after bishop takes c3, b takes c3, queen takes c3, there's bishop d2. And both of these guys are attacked. And if queen e5 check, we simply go knight e2, keeping the pressure here, threatening bishop c3, and you will lose something. And after knight d4, again bishop c3, knight takes, bishop takes, and if queen takes, knight takes, there is bishop takes h8, and it's completely winning for white. That's why after e takes d5, knight d4 has to be played, and now we do have a very interesting idea, which is knight f3. We're attacking, and it seems as if it's a bad move, because after bishop g4, seems that we're suffering because this pen is super annoying. And maybe we cannot go h3 now, as knight takes f3, bishop takes f3, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, and that's too bad, yeah? Because after bishop d2, there's queen f3, and we're losing pieces. Ho-ho! Then what can we do? What can we do is simply castling. But again, you might ask, like, I'm not happy. Like, this is actually my first impression of this position. Like, I'm really not happy because I am in a very annoyed pen here. I cannot do whatever. Like, whenever I go h3, there is this idea of knight takes f3, bishop takes f3, and then bishop takes h3. So to my surprise, here, as far as I remember, maybe 42 games has played in this position, even more. And most of the players played something like rook e1, probably, just improving the rook. And while preparing for this, I turned my engine on, and my engine says h3. I know that h3 it seems as a bad move, but let's see what is the engine offering. So after knight takes f3, which is actually the only idea, because I'm threatening the knight, so the bishop cannot go back. Yeah, cannot go here. For example, g4, you will lose a piece. That's why knight takes f3 has to be played. And now if bishop takes h3, believe it or not, white is completely losing rook e1, and it's almost +2 for white. Even he is a pawn down, it's +2 for white. Because there is no great way to support here or to protect here. After losing the pawn, there's ideas like d6, very important and very strong. After d6, like we're attacking on b7, also attacking on e7. Also, we want to push somewhere. Maybe ideas like now as I'm thinking loud, ideas like g4, king h2 to protect the or to take the bishop. So it seems that yeah, really black is losing, and it's very interesting because listen, if you're playing this as blitz or rabbit, there's no chance black will not take that pawn. Black will take that pawn, and then we'll start thinking, because there's no time to rethink of what's obvious, you know. So what if bishop takes f3? Then simply you could take with the queen. Now this is actually not isolated pawn. This is advanced pawn, and it's actually a strength, not a weakness. And after knight d7, we go simply rook f e1, improving our rooks, attacking on e7. And after protecting, we come up, or we improve our rook a to d1, rook a to c8. How to continue after that? We simply protect our pawn with rook e3, and then we'll see how it goes. Like either it's rook d to e1 or rook e to d3. Ideas like h4, h5, h6 is always there. So black is still not equalized, needs to suffer even more, because there is pressure on e7, there is some attacking ideas on the king side, and white is doing great. And I do believe you don't have to memorize all of the complications of the Grunfeld, because you know, if you're not, this is actually my philosophy, if you're not maybe 2600, there's no great benefits of memorizing two deep lines, because the point of the opening is just to get a very good position. You understand it, you based the understanding on strategical grounds, so your opening is strategically sound, and also you're not memorizing, because you know that we don't have that much of time. Maybe you finish this video till the end, thank you for that, but maybe the next time you will review the Grunfeld after 6 months or something, or maybe the next time you will play against the Grunfeld after 1 month. So if you based your studying of the Grunfeld and understanding, then whenever you're going to face the Grunfeld, even after 1 month, at least some information will be stick in your mind and you'll have ideas what to do. I hope you find this useful. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check the channel. Very important, very instructive content is there. Thanks for watching. See you in another one. Hello everyone, I have read a comment for the series said what to do against the Dutch, and my first intention was not to deal with these kind of sidelines, but then I changed my mind and now I wanted to make it a complete repertoire. So after we talked about the Queen's Gambit declined, Slavs, Queen's Gambit accepted, Nimzo Indian, Benoni, Benko, Grunfeld and King's Indian, this is the episode number 9 in which we will talk about the Dutch. And against Dutch, I am going to recommend a very interesting line, which is very rare, though it's a very interesting choice, which is c3. And it looks to be a very solid passive move, right? But wait a second. Where did I get this inspiration from? For years and years, I knew this game. Like that was my choice as black versus f4. I will go d5, and after knight f6, this is a game, by the way, by Kasparov. We go knight f6, and after e3, bishop g4, and then black found this great idea to push e5 early on. White prevented, so now black cannot go e5. In order to achieve this and to go e5 in one go, he played a fascinating move, c6. The point is to play queen c7 followed by e5 right away, and then I would like to go bishop d6. I don't want to be slow like e6, bishop d6, and then go e5. No. c6, queen c7, and bishop takes f3 first, bishop takes f3, and we go e5. The point is, we have a great development. We are trying to castle long, and then through start a very strong attack on the king side. So for example, the game went on to play d3, and after that bishop d6, now f4 is under fire, g3 trying to keep that diagonal closed, but long castling, and soon we will see h5, h4 by Kasparov exchanging first, and then h5, and h4, Kasparov started the attack, and whenever Kasparov started attacks, normally he delivers. So bishop c5 check, g takes f4 opening the g file, knight takes e5 threatening on g4, check queen d7, seems to be very dangerous choice and very dangerous move, knight b6 attacking, and soon the game went on, or Kasparov went on to win game by a nice checkmate. So whenever you asked me about what to do against the Dutch, actually it was at the beginning a challenge, like what should I recommend? Because you know, Dutch is very, if I will recommend something like a main line, for example, c4, or like g3, probably g3 is the most played move. Now black has choices like e6 maybe, g6 maybe, stonewall is another idea, like what should I do? Then I remembered the Kasparov game, and then I said, okay, why not c3? And here the most played move actually in this position, and even if he did not play it, you can do the same, knight f6. Looks like c3 is a very weird move. Why not to play knight f6 and improving the knight, and we'll see how it goes. By the way, if, for example, if e6, you could go knight f3 followed by bishop g5, as what Kasparov has done, you know. Against g6, it's probably the same. So that's why after knight f6, we will go right away, bishop g5. Our plan, see, this is what I like. I like to have a general plan. So in case you forget moves, or maybe you study this episode, everything is fine, but the time you face the Dutch was or is a year after. You probably will forget, but then wait a second. The plan is bishop g5, knight d2, queen c2, e4, bishop d3, castling, and start an attack on the king side. See? And this is most of the moves that you will see and you will face. Here, the most played move for black is e6. But I tried to be aggressive and asked myself, what if knight e4, for example? And here, believe it or not, it was a novelty in my database. h4. See, I'm giving you novelities here. See? Okay. So after h4, the point is to protect the bishop. And now if the bishop is taken, it's almost a game over. Like we will take back, the rook will be improved. And for example, after e6 attacking the pawn, we do have f4. Strategical concept. Pay attention. In chess, whenever you give what you give up one of your bishops. Put all of your pawns, especially central ones, on the same color as that bishop. Justification. Whenever you give up a bishop, you lose control for certain square or for squares that has the same color as the given bishop. That's why the other pieces that can fight for squares, protecting squares, are pawns. So pawns and bishops are the responsible pieces for defending squares. So that's why f4 a very strategical idea. And now, for example, if bishop e7, knight f3, if black tries to improve his game with b6, then simply we go knight e5, or sorry, e4 first. Looks like losing a pawn. Wait a second, what's this e4? But if he takes, I'll go knight e5, and queen h5 is actually a checkmate. And if knight g6 is another threat, where the rook takes h7. For example, g6, knight takes g6, you cannot take, you will lose your rook. But how to fight against queen h5? You cannot. In case, for example, you forget about the idea of e4, no problem. Again, same, knight d2, queen c2, e4, castling along bishop d3, and prepare for g4. The same concept works, yeah? So, but wait a second, I mean, why don't I get the bishop? So the point of knight e4 is to attack the bishop. Now I cannot take the bishop. What's that? So if h6, for example, not taking the bishop, h6 kicking the bishop away. Now, okay, I'll go bishop f4. And after d6, now knight d2. Knight d2 threatening to double up the pawns. So after knight takes d2 probably is a must. Queen takes d2, knight d7, threatening e5. Yeah? Kind of making use of the bishop being here. But now, long castling, very strong move. The point is, e5 is not working, because after that I could go bishop takes e5, and I will be glad to take your queen. So that's why after castling long, e5 doesn't work. So in order to improve the rest of the pieces, knight f6 has to be played, and maybe knight e4 is coming. Sorry, we're not going to allow this. e6, and now, very aggressive move, e4. I forget, I don't know what to do. Queen c2 and then e4. No problem. e4. The point of this sacrifice is to gain time, to improve pieces. Now queen e2. Attacking, and in the meantime, threatening. If knight f6 trying to stop this, g4. The point is, bishop g2, g5, queen h5 check. And actually, it's strategically sound, because as they said, whenever you are ahead in development, open the position. And here, with g4, g5, we're trying to open the position. What do you mean by opening the position? To exchange more pawns, more files, and more diagonal will be available. Okay, so last question. So that's for knight e4. What if knight e6 if d5? Because see, if e6 now we have the strategical plan, which is the most played move, you know. Again, what's the plan? Knight, queen, e4, castling, attack, yeah? Perfect. So what if d5? There's a problem with d5. And the problem is strategical. Well, bishop takes f6. Ooh. The point is, after e takes f6, you don't like the pawns here. If this pawn is back to f7, it's fine. Like, let me just improve your opening knowledge a bit. Like this one is fine. But you know, the position we got is the same as, like the point is, one of the main ideas for black here is to play f5 followed by knight d7, knight f6, knight e4. See? But the position we got previously, as if black here in this position decided to play f6. How weak is black to play this f6? f6 is a very, very, very bad move. Like, it takes permanently the f6 square from the knight. So it's actually the same structure, isn't it? Like, when you think about it, like, here if d5, bishop takes f6, it's the same structure, right? Same. So what should I do here? First of all, you have to know that your opponent is strategically not happy and weak. And your plan is going to be around c4. After bishop d6, you improve the bishop. Improve the queen threatening. For example, knight e7 defending the pawn. We improve the knights easily. And now h4. Again, we give up a bishop. We put all of our pawns to fight for dark squares. See? Very important strategical idea. And after g6, now you could go g3, by the way. But as long as you're controlling f4 very good, you could start with c4. And now c5 is a threat to win the bishop. And in case of c6, simply c5 followed by b4. And it's more than clear advantage for white. A4 to be coming, B5, G3, and then you could castle short, bring the other rook to the game, and you'll have a huge space advantage and a huge initiative on the queen side, and white is clearly better. So now the rest is the most played move, which is e6. Simply we go knight d2. What's the plan? The plan is e4. And in case of bishop e7, now we simply take bishop takes f6. You take back with the bishop, and now e4. After e4, f takes e4. We take back with the knight. Knight takes e4. And now say castling short. I'll go bishop d3. What's the plan? Queen c2, castling and attack. How can black complete the development? Say b6, for example. Knight f3. Bishop b7, queen c2. It's almost similar to the Kasparov's game, except that in the Kasparov's game, g6 was played. In that case, it was g3, h5, h4 happened. But now if g6, then h4, h5. Because see, as you can see now, we do have a threat, yeah? That's why h6, for example. But now castling long, yeah? Okay, that's clear, that's interesting. How to continue after that? See, now let me give you another information. If you're playing a game and you reach this position in which you play the kind of automatic moves or the moves that you know, and your knowledge out of the opening is just finished, and you're playing a classical game, yeah? This is called a tactical, or not tactical, critical moment. Sometimes the language betrays me, yeah? It's called critical moment. What do I mean by critical moment? It's a moment in a game where you need to stop and relax and take your time, at least 10 minutes, trying to come up with plans, with ideas, understand the position. If you do that, the amount of your blunders will decrease too much. Why? Because these 10 minutes or these 20 minutes that you spend here thinking about the position will give you much more information that will be helpful during the whole game probably, or at least the next maybe 10 to 20 moves. So after knight c6, the plan that I will give you, and we will finish with that, is this interesting idea, h4. What's the point of h4? Sometimes, which is rarely happened, knight f g5, but the point is simply to go for g4. And g5 is a threat. If the rook is needed, it can happen. Yes, this is a tactical weakness. There might be some discoveries, but it's now all about calculations, like bishop g5, bishop e5, bishop d4, knight d4, bishop h4, knight h4. So there is no good discovery actually here. And g5 is coming, and black is almost losing here in this position. So this is now I know that you know this is not like a move by move repertoire, yeah? And this is actually not the way or the point of me making this repertoire. The point of this repertoire is to give you practical weapons, practical ideas what to do. I don't want you to memorize. I want you to understand. Having understanding will save you even if you forget. But if you memorize, then the chance that you forget is high. But whenever you forgot something, probably you're losing the game. So this is the way I would like you to think about chess, not only in my in the recommended repertoire here, but for example, whatever courses you're studying now or whatever your opening repertoire. By the way, this way of thinking is valid up to maybe 2500. So don't think that, oh, wait a second, but now I want it to be 2300. This is for beginners. No, this is not for beginners. Maybe you can add more knowledge, but the way to understand chess and the way to approach openings, because openings are huge, you know, we just for 9 episodes and still more episodes to be coming, we still not finished talking about one line you play with white. So you need something against e4, something against d4, something against c4, something against knight f3, and sometimes you need to add one more actually weapon to your arsenals. So it's a long journey. If you approach it well, then it will serve you well. If you memorize, maybe this year you have too much time to study, but the next year you got busy, you forgot everything, you don't have time to review, you don't have time to repeat. There is no understanding, yeah? I am focusing on the understanding, and this is what I wanted you to focus on. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out the whole series. We have talked about almost everything. Still more, probably 1 or 2 more episodes to be coming about some sidelines, for example, Chigorin or some triangle defense or etc. But in order to keep it or make it kind of as complete as possible. Thanks for watching again. See you in another one. Have a nice day.